All right. Here we go, everybody. Welcome to STARJUMP Shipyard. Hello, everybody. It's me, STARJUMP Grim. Nice to see you all. Hopefully, I'm coming in loud and clear. The mic looks like it's picking up everything okay. Nice to see everybody. Looks like we've got quite a few people piling into chat, so appreciate that. 35 and climbing over on Twitch, and an insane 86 on YouTube already, and we haven't even got started. So that's really amazing. Nice to see everybody, though. It's always good to catch up with everyone. It's been kind of a crazy week for me. See StarJump Ender in chat. Everyone give Ender 07. I'm sure we got some other Star Jumpers in chat as well as the usual Star Jump community. So thank you all for being here. Headford just subscribed for 5 months in a row. That's amazing. Appreciate that. Eagle0013 subscribed for 9 months in a row. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Let's see here. Just scrolling through. May have missed something. Nope. Think I got it. Okay, everyone's saying 5 by 5. Good. Okay, so got a couple things we're going to go over tonight, everyone. Got a few top of show announcements, specifically centered around Fleet Viewer and a little bit of referral stuff. But real quick, as you know, we are giving away, or we're doing a giveaway tonight, courtesy of CIG, Cloud Imperium Games. Thank you very much, CIG. Oh, StarJump Ender just subscribed 14 months in a row. What are you doing, dude? Save your money. My goodness. Appreciate you, though. Appreciate you. We're giving away a gray market SHIV and a CitizenCon goodies pack. I thought they were going to be separate giveaways, but when I received it from CIG, they are part of a bundle, which is kind of interesting. So in that bundle, if you win, you get the Gray's Market SHIV, which is a really cool ship, if I do say so myself, and you get the CitizenCon goodies pack. So you get all the cool stuff, okay? I'm going to put the link in chat. It is a Gleam link. You can go there and just post it in the chat. Feel free to go there, register to get in on that giveaway. At the end of the show, we will do the giveaway. Again, thank you, CIG, for doing that. Don't know if we have any CIG people watching tonight, but really appreciate those. Those are super helpful. I also do, oh, actually, Ender, I owe you the Blossom Pack. You won the Blossom Pack in our CitizenCon pre-show chat. Connell, thank you very much for the follow. But I also have another giveaway that is an especially cool one. I don't know if I'm going to do it tonight. I might do it Thursday night. But it is for the... Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. The next giveaway I have for Thursday is this one of my favorites. I got to admit, one of my favorites. I'm going to be giving away the Elysium pack, which has the gold and black cutlass black paint, the Volt weapon, I think it's the Fresnel LMG, I think, and then the pirate gold and black armor. Really cool. I do have one of those. Probably going to be giving that away on Thursday-ish, probably. So yes, thank you everyone who followed. Really appreciate that. Get in on those giveaways if you can. Ender says, give it away to someone else. Maybe, but you do have an Ares, and this one's out of my personal collection, not a CIG one, which a CIG one I probably wouldn't award to fellow Star Jumpers to stay in good graces. But this is a personal Grim collection giveaway, and it is a really awesome paint for the Ares. So anyways, is it gold and navy blue? Or it's a little hard to tell. I couldn't tell if it was just lighting. It looks gold and black. I haven't checked it out in game yet, though, but it looks really cool. But there we go. I have one of those. Again, that'll be coming later. But let me go back to... But tonight, we are doing the giveaway for the SHIV, Gray's Market SHIV, and the Star Citizen Sitcon goodies pack. The goodies pack, remember, contains things like the Vandal plushie. It contains those 2 new weapons, one of those being the Space AK-47 type gun, which is really cool. Everyone loves. There's some really cool armor sets in there. One is for the Amble Paladin. Another one is kind of a Vandal style armor. Another one's kind of the the space jacker, ship jacker kind of armor that sort of goes along with the Shiv. So really, really cool. Doing those giveaways, try to get in on that if you can. I have pinned the Gleam link to the top of the YouTube chat. So next thing I want to talk about is the referral system. Okay, those of you know, I am trying to rack up referrals. I am the worst at getting referrals, but I did just on the new ladder get my first referral, which gave me the Army, the UEE Army armor set, which is actually a really cool armor set. So thank you very much for whoever that was. But what do we want to do? We want to climb the ladder. What do we want to get to? We want to get all the way to 50 recruits. Okay. We want to get to 50 recruits because I want to unlock the Misk Raptor. And if I unlock the Misk Raptor, then we're going to put the Misk Raptor in Fleet Viewer. Okay. That's what we're going to do. If we can unlock the Misk Raptor, then it shall go into Fleet Viewer. Okay. Which I think would be really cool. McD says I have 0 referrals. McD, that's usually where I'm sitting. That's usually where I'm sitting is 0 referrals. So STARJUMP Ender is way better at referrals than me. I am not good at it. So Jackie Catbun and Adrian985, thank you very much for your follows. I do appreciate it tonight. Ever closer to our goal. Again, very, very appreciative. Hopefully no one is having stream issues on YouTube. I see some people have moved to Twitch. Hopefully everything's okay. I'm showing good metrics on YouTube and Twitch, so hopefully no issues. But yes, if you have a friend who wants to get on that referral thing, get into the game, start playing, all that kind of good stuff, shoot them my referral link if you don't want to share your own. Obviously, share your own first. If you are trying to get up the referral ladder, absolutely share your own first. This is not a priority, but would be cool to get. So if you are sharing it out to people and not using your own, please use mine. Anyways, nice to see everyone. 070, nice to see you. Nice to see you. I do see a lot of familiar names in chat. So again, everyone, really appreciate it. For those of you that are possibly new to the stream, thank you for hanging out tonight. Now we're going to talk about one other thing before we get into tonight's show. The other thing we're going to talk about is STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. What do we have to talk about STARJUMP Fleet Viewer? Okay, well, I have I'm going to bring up something real quick here. I'm not getting distracted, I promise. As you all know, we really push to keep STARJUMP Fleet Viewer updated. It is a slog. It is a lot of work. Most recently, Starship 42. So for those of you that remember Starship 42, that would allow you to look at the ships in 3D and all that good stuff. Starship 42 has closed down. Stun Locked On Donuts, nice to see you. Yo. They have shut down. So they're no longer here. So we're one of the few remaining Fleet Viewer type sites. I was sad to see Starship 42 go. I'm a big fan of their sites. It's what inspired this. Lunfasi, the creator, was a super nice person. So I wish he would keep it going. But you know, these things are a lot of work to keep up. So I do understand it. That being said, though, Fleet Viewer has sort of been as is for a while, right? And we definitely have been thinking about where to take it next. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute and maybe how you can contribute to that. Okay, thank you for those follows. Thank you, Caddy. Appreciate that. So real quick, before we get into that, to highlight how Fleet Viewer is always changing, always updating, all that kind of good stuff, I'm going to bring up one of the new ships. We're going to bring up the Paladin in Fleet Viewer as it looks right now. There it is. This was the hollow model. You can kind of tell, simplified. Does anyone want to see the latest render of the Paladin that will be coming to Fleet Viewer very soon? Is anyone interested in seeing that? This is the old render. This is from when it was a concept ship. But do you want to see the new Paladin render, courtesy of VMXEO? That is incredible Starfab. This is what the new Paladin will look like. Let's go down here. So we're going from that So we're going from this right here to that. A lot more detailed, looking really, really sharp, really great lighting, all the decals, all the good stuff there. He did an incredible job. VMXEO always does an incredible job. So to bring this to the question that everyone's sort of asking in chat, when is the SHIV, when is the Stinger, and when is the new rendered Paladin coming to Fleet Viewer? Very, very soon. Very soon. Paladin is obviously already done. SHIV and Stinger are being worked on. The Stinger's kind of an interesting ship too, so I'm curious to see how that one is going to come out. I don't know if he's in chat right now, but in case he is, everyone give VMXEO a big '07 salute for all the hard work he does, keeping all these ships updated, especially since CIG has started to move away from concept ships. So yeah, it's taken a little bit of time to get these in, these new ships in. Obviously, I know they've been in the game for a little bit now, a couple days, but just give us some time. We're pushing on it. They'll get in very soon, and obviously with a high level of detail. So, real quick question, Citizen Ninja: will the new Paladin model also get the Shadowfall paint? So I know we have the Shadowfall paint in Fleet Viewer now with the concept. I need to talk to VMXEO about that. I'm pretty sure we can. I was going to let him get through the two other new ships first before he circles back around to the Shadowfall paint. But yes, I think we'll try to fill that gap. Yep. Cosmic Turtle says, question, is there a future possibility where you have the ship paint options for ships in Fleet Viewer? We've done some experiments. Let's put it that way. We've done some experiments, and some of them are interesting. I'm still messing with it, and that kind of leads into my next conversation or my next sort of topic, right? Which is STARJUMP Fleet Viewer and Hangar Link. Okay. Now, I want to take a moment here just to remind everyone what we're talking about when we say Hangar Link and STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. Are they the same? Are they separate? What the hell is it? All that kind of good stuff. So essentially what it is Hangar Link was a platform created by STARJUMP Starlet. STARJUMP Fleet Viewer was something created by myself, Starlet, VMXEO. And we sort of put them on the same portal because we wanted them to tie into each other. Okay. So they exist separately, but they have like tie-ins with each other. But we are looking at where we sort of take it. And Starlet, I don't want to, and again, this stuff, I don't know when this will be happening, everyone, but we have the STARJUMP Discord, yes, but we also I have a private Discord that is for Fleet Viewer development, right? So Fleet Viewer technical stuff, right? And it's sort of siloed off to keep it clean and lean. So in there, we have been discussing what would a new version of Hangar Link and STARJUMP Fleet Viewer look like? What would the visuals look like? We want it to look better. We want it to have additional functionality and all kinds of new stuff. So where do you come in on this? On the STARJUMP Discord, okay, so on our regular STARJUMP community Discord, we have Kaboom. I'm hearing you on the AK Picks thing. AK Picks, that's something I've been thinking about. But on the STARJUMP Discord, we do have a channel called, I think it's called Fleet Viewer Suggestions, right? Let me get the exact name of it. Yeah, Fleet Viewer Suggestions and Hangar Link Suggestions, okay? You can leave suggestions in there, okay? For things you would like to see, okay, in the next version. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, we're probably not going to respond to them. As a matter of fact, I try not to respond to them. And the reason is because I like to scroll through them once a week, pick out all the ones that are interesting and possible. And I put those into the private Discord to sort of put them in the list of things. Okay. So if you post something in there and you don't get a reply, that's normal. I don't want to reply. I'm trying to keep it clean so I can go back and scrub it later. But if you have any ideas, things you would like to see in the next version of Hangar.link and STARJUMP Fleet Viewer, And it doesn't even have to be features necessarily. It could be design related. It could be maybe a more holistic pull together of the two entities, anything like that. I'd like to hear about it. Okay. So that is something we are in active discussions on now. It's something we are talking about. There's a lot of roll-on effects to some of this stuff. So for example, one of the things I hear a lot from people is that they would like right-facing isometric views. Currently, we have left-facing isometric views. They would like right-facing isometric views. I would like that too. It's not impossible to do by any means. It's just work time, right? Dragon Slayer, thank you for the follow. So it's just work time. So what we're trying to do is figure out what the most requested things are, choosing what some of the art people on Fleet Viewer can do, what some of the UX, UI, platform stuff people or Starlet can do, and sort of figuring out how much time we have and how we can divide all that time. Okay. Jir, can't say your whole name. Jirai54. God, I can't say that. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. Salute to you. So again, active thinking, active conversations going for what the next version of Fleet Viewer could be. I see some stuff going into chat now. Again, go put your comments there. Feel free to post a Fleet Viewer pic on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and put your suggestion there. I do read almost all that stuff, and I am pulling all that stuff and putting it into the development Discord for Fleet Viewer so that it's archived there. We have a lot of stuff there. I'm excited to see where we can take the platform moving forward. There are other ideas for STARJUMP projects. It's just figuring out what to do first and how to do it. And the Fleet Viewer thing is probably the lowest barred entry for us, like the thing we can like quickly start iterating on instead of like a brand new project. So, Ubu Biz, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So that's a little bit of news on STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. If you haven't checked it out, you're one of those people that just has not checked out Fleet Viewer at all, make sure you go look at that. Okay, let's get into it. What are we talking about tonight, everybody? We are talking about what is next. Okay, we just had CitizenCon. We had the 3 new ships brought to us. I think we'd all agree that prior to the leaks that started coming, right there at what was it, 3 or 4 days before CitizenCon. Prior to that, we really kind of only thought that the Paladin was coming, right? We knew the Paladin was coming. That was a known thing. But what we didn't know, what were the other ships? We thought maybe the Drake Flappy Bird thing, maybe this Consolidated Outland ships. I think there was a lot of people, including myself, thinking that there was going to be sort of a focus on industrial ships, right? I kind of thought, well, the Pioneer or the Paladin will be the combat focused ship. Then they're going to have some industrial focused ships. And I think CitCon maybe surprised a lot of people in that CitizenCon was very, what's the right way to say this? Very combat focused, right? We got all 3 ships were combat focused: the Paladin, the Stinger, and the SHIV. A lot of the event spaces and events and missions and all that kind of stuff that they were showing for 2026 were either combat focused in a good way. I thought the tactical fleet fly things, whatever, really, really cool concept. Love it. But even some of the industrial stuff they showed had combat components to it, right? So that was probably one of the biggest surprises I heard is this sort of focus on combat. And then the next conversation I heard when people kind of said, well, that's a lot of combat, right? Is, well, what are we going to hope for or what are we hoping for IAE? And I saw a lot of people say, oh, well, IAE is the one where we start getting a focus on industrial ships. But we know that can't be completely true because we do know one ship that is coming at IAE. We know the Perseus is coming. And I know there's some, doubt about that. There's some people theorizing that some of the more recent leaked images are not the Perseus. They're definitely wrong, by the way. It is 100% the Perseus, but we're going to go into why and all that kind of stuff. Um, let's see. Through my notes here. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to look through what are some of the most likely ship candidates coming at IAE, and sort of just get into a discussion on maybe how much we think we'll see and how it could possibly differ from CitizenCon, right? Putting aside the reaction to CitizenCon, which I think everyone would agree it was mixed, maybe, right? At least mixed. I think that there's enough open debate about IAE that, or not open debate, I think there's enough unknowns about IAE that there's still a lot of surprises that could come. There's still a lot of ships, though, that we do know are in development that we just haven't heard anything about, right? So what remains to be seen is IAE going to be filled up with those ships? So the ones we maybe know a little bit about, but we don't know the name of it. We don't totally know what it does. Or is it going to be some of that mixed with ships we've never heard of that are complete surprises? Personally, I hope it's a mix of the two. I'd like some of the ones we're expecting, but I also like to be a little bit surprised, right? I think that was what was so cool about the SHIV and the Stinger, is that both of them were a little bit of a surprise and unexpected, right? Now, I think we can maybe read a little bit into the SHIV and the Stinger as well, and we're going to talk about that read into them in terms of why would CIG sort of, I'm going to say recycle, but why would CIG bring in to the fold, why would they bring in Squadron 42 ships, do some slight updates to them, but not even get them to gold standard? I think we have some possible theories on that. We're going to get to it. So maybe not theories, but really good guesses. So it's JoJo TV is in chat. I hope you're doing well, dude. If any of you have not checked out JoJo's channel, make sure you go check out It's JoJo TV. He does amazing content. He's blowing up. He's blowing up. He does really good content, though. That's why. So JoJo says, "Oh, 07, Graham, excited to see what you think of the Perseus Bridge sneak peek." Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to start there, honestly. I think we're going to start with the Perseus because it's the most, it's the ship that's on everyone's mind recently with the latest sneak peek. So we're going to kind of jump right into that. Let me drag over, I can't talk tonight, drag over a couple of silhouettes here, or images. One of them is a silhouette, but we're going to drag over a couple images and walk through those. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. AMD, hope you're well. Salute to you. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Hook 2005 says, question, Grim, do you know why we do not get an accurate list of our ships in Fleet Viewer? You should get an accurate list. You'd have to be a lot more detailed in the question, though, Hook. I guess I would say, how is it not accurate? And then we'll start from there. We're going to swing over to the CitizenCon 2954 silhouette video. We love them. We didn't get one this year. Very sad about that. I know Execute from the Info Runners is pretty sad about that as well. But we're going to go to the silhouette video. As you see here, one of the ships showed. Oh, by the way, real quick, we have 82 on Twitch and 177 on YouTube. That's incredible, y'all. I really appreciate that. Bugfang, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. So it's, let's see. Sorry, stand by, everybody. Okay. So we got the Perseus. It was one of the silhouettes shown, right? There was a lot of back and forth, I think, between myself and a couple of the other ship-focused content creators about, was this image we were seeing here accurate? Was it accurate in scale? Was it a new model? Was, what we were seeing here something that had been updated? And ultimately, I think the answer to that, based on a lot of conversations I've had, is that no. What you were seeing here in this silhouette was actually an old model, an old hollow model. And the big giveaway on that is the landing gears. They're using these sort of old RSI hollow model landing gears instead of the new beefier, chunkier landing gears we get with RSI ships. That's one of the big first dead giveaways. And then there was a few other issues, like some of the back cladding here where the engine's connected, or the engine nacelles connected to the ship and stuff, seemed really thinned out, like it was missing some pieces. This wasn't completely unheard of with other ships shown in the silhouette video. There was other ships that had missing parts and pieces. Famously, the ironclad that they showed off was missing the command module, for example. So with that being said, we're talking about the Perseus. The next image we got most recently of the Perseus was this one. Again, we've looked at this one quite a bit. This was our LOD 0 look at the RSI Perseus. LOD 0 is always a really fun state for ships. It's really cool to see them in that state. For those of you that go back to CitizenCon Invictus 2954, will remember when the Polaris exterior was on the show floor. That was LOD 0 as well, okay? So LOD 0, but not final art. Okay, there is a difference between LOD 0 and final art. LOD 0 means it has all the detail there, but final art means it hasn't got all the material differentiation. It doesn't have some of the color accents added, a little bit of wear and tear features, all that kind of stuff. Some of the decaling is there's sort of like additional decaling added in the final art phase 2. So again, a lot of detail in this image, but not the final look, okay? So when we do get the Perseus, we can fully expect the Perseus to look a little different than what you're seeing in this image, okay? Vincent, we're going to get to that one. That's a great question, and we're going to get to that in just a minute for sure. And yeah, Jojo, we are going to talk a little bit about what we're expecting maybe at IAE in terms of some sort of ship show preview. I have some hopes. I guess it sort of depends on CIG's focus for 2026. Like how far forward looking do they want to be? The big thing to note, though, on this exterior image that we want to kind of focus on tonight is we want to zoom in on this bridge area here. We're going to really push in on it a bit. And you can kind of see the shape of the glass here. You can see the large struts. You can see some internals on the glass that seem to indicate overhead seat attachments. Again, we're not 100% sure on that, but that's sort of what it looks like. But again, you see a little bit of that detail. You can see the glass. One of the first things you notice about this glass versus the original concept image of, or I should say concept model of the Perseus, is that in the concept model, the Perseus had a much more sharp, angular glass section that didn't have a lot of struts. CIG has very clearly moved away from that now. Real quick, Jojo TV says, I think there's a chance they give more of a progress update on the Pioneer and Kraken, as well as ship silhouettes at IE. I sincerely hope so, Jojo. I mean, the silhouette stuff provides so much great conversation amongst the people that love spaceships. So I really do hope they do that. I really do. Riddick says, question, can we see an update on the Aurora and Connie at the next event? It's possible. I don't think on the Connie we might see something in the Aurora, though. So anyway, the big takeaway from this, if you're going to take anything away from this LOD 0 image here, is that it is very clear they changed the bridge of the Perseus, okay? I'm going to go back to Hangar Link real quick here, and we're going to spawn the Perseus. Now, this Perseus is using the hollow model, okay? So the hollow model was taken and essentially just textured, right? Hey, Hostility, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. But if you go down here and look, you'll see how angular and sharp this is. If I go to profile view, again, you can see here on the glass, let me switch to HD. There we go. You can see here on the glass, very sharp angles here on the Perseus glass. There's a lot of people that really like that. They like that aggressive nature on them. See here, Hook says, Grim, it seems the J Fleet Viewer is working now, no longer able to get a JSON file from CIG's website. Okay, yeah, no worries, Hook. I mean, there's always some issue or two floating around, but it should populate your ship, so. But anyways, it was you can see how sleek and angular and aggressive the glass is. So again, that has now been changed. We got more rounded contour areas here to build that out, stronger strut areas here to reinforce that sort of sort of strengthened front canopy area. There's going to be people that love that, people that hate that. This was the same thing that happened with the Polaris. Originally, the Polaris had a much smaller front canopy. It was a lot sharper, shorter, and a little bit more aggressive. And then the canopy that they came out with the new Polaris was a little bit wider, much longer, actually almost twice as long, a lot more glass area. And we've all sort of settled with that pretty well. I mean, again, there's other things with the Polaris that we sort of want them to address. But in general, I was one of the people that was very critical of the Polaris bridge changes, and I've grown to love it. I sincerely do think the Polaris is one of the nicest ships in the game. And it's got a few issues for sure, but one of the nicest ships in the game. So anyways, this is the, let me pull out here. This is the Perseus with that little bit of new bridge. Okay. So then we got the next leaked image, this one here. Okay. Now let's talk about this for a minute. Let's go ahead and get the first thing out of the way first. And, that is, Gin and Tonic says, question, do you think they'll do what we all want them to do to the Aurora and let her spread her wings? Well, you know, that image was famously done by VMXEO, our fellow star jumper, and I think we'd all love that. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't. But let's talk about the Perseus here for a minute, or why I'm pretty sure this is the Perseus. CIG has already been telling us the status of the Perseus over the last few monthly reports. Okay. The most recent said that it was in final art stages. Ship was being close to closed out. Downstream teams were working on it, that type of stuff. Okay. That means the ship is being prepped for release. Okay. The ship is being ready to be put into active flight ready status, right? We've already got the one preview image. We are now, what, a month from IAE, right? Valisaw, thank you for resubscribing with Prime. I appreciate it very much. We're now a month from IAE. This is a very expensive ship. Remember, the Perseus is not a cheap ship. And with its flight ready price bump up that it's almost assured to get, CIG needs to start hyping this ship up. Okay. Why do they need to hype it up? Because they need to sell a lot of them. And it's a pretty expensive ship. You're about to ask people to shell out, you know, $750, whatever the flight ready cost of this thing ends up being. Okay. So you want to start building some hype. Okay. In addition, this is a pretty large bridge. Not only do you have 3 seats in here, but you have a lot of space going back here. You also have a rather large door here, okay? So right away, I can tell you, just based off my knowledge of ship sizes, working with the ship models as much as I do, I can tell you that this is not a Apollo variant. It's not whatever this Hermes thing is. And I can almost guarantee you it's not a new big ship that we have never heard about. Okay. I don't think this is like a Starlancer situation where they're working on some big ass RSI ship that we just haven't heard about. CIG has a number of large ships in development. Okay. They have the Kraken, the Pioneer, 2 ironclads, the Perseus, okay? And that's just sort of the big ships on the docket, okay? And maybe there's some unknowns there too. They've already got enough big ships in development. They don't need yet another unknown big ship in development. That combined with what we're seeing from a design standpoint here, we're seeing elements of the modern RSI military design language, and we're seeing elements of the RSI Zeus civilian style design language going on. This is something CIG already told us we were getting. CIG said that the Perseus is going to borrow from both art sets, right? They said they was going to borrow from both of those art sets. Tibble says, question, we assume the driver is getting control of the size 5 torpedoes, but do you think they'll also get control of one of the size 3 remote turrets? I don't think so, Tibbles. I don't really know, but here's something, here's one thing I want to bring up. Let's, and to do this, I guess properly, I need to bring up this image. In the original concept image of the Perseus bridge, we have a front seat. This is when it had that very angular, very aggressive bridge area, right? Again, see the same layout. Got 2 big areas over here, big open door leading forward, 2 seats, and a front seat, which was probably the pilot seat, right? This looks to have changed now. One of the things that you'll notice right away that's changed is these big seating consoles. This is something that, at least on RSI, CIG seems to be pulling away from pretty dramatically. The Polaris was supposed to have sort of elements like that too. The Polaris went to sort of the glass panel, right? The glass panel console for the pilot, co-pilot, all that kind of stuff. And you'll see that these big consoles gave way to these glass panels. You can see it right here. R. Toms, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. You can see that this glass panel right here is the same exact panel we have on the Polaris for the pilot and the co-pilot, right? We don't have those glass panels for the command for the captain, right? It's the pilot and the co-pilot. In addition, one of the things you'll see is in the pilot chair here, we do have a flight stick. We have a control stick right there, okay? On this other one, co-pilot seat, we have a flight stick here as well, okay? While we can't make out what's on this seat, I can almost guarantee you it will not have control sticks. And that is because the middle seat, I don't believe, is the captain's seat anymore. What I think they've done is they've done the obvious thing. They're doing exactly what they did on the Polaris. And this is something you have to do when it comes to anticipating CIG sometimes. And this is by no means across the board, but it's very, very, very likely that CIG is not trying to just drop a grenade at their feet and do something completely new for yet another large RSI subcapital ship, military ship. The whole point of going from Polaris to Perseus was that they were going to find efficiencies to get the Perseus done quicker. It's the same reason they're doing the Ironclads and then the Kraken. They're looking for things that can carry over from ship to ship, all right? It would make sense that they would essentially lift the Polaris bridge layout and place it in a way into the Perseus, right? Which would mean a primary pilot seat on the port side of the ship, a co-pilot seat on the starboard side of the ship, and then a captain's seat here. Now we can't see what's in these 2 back areas here. Maybe nothing, maybe just avionics components and stuff. Moyanese, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. But that is most likely what's going on here. And I've heard some people say, well, what if the middle seat is on rails and you get in it and it pulls you to the front and that's the pilot seat? Again, you have to look at what CIG's done with RSI. There is no RSI ships where the seats are on rails. Soundboy, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Thank you for the support, everyone. Really appreciate it. We hit the follower goal tonight, by the way. Thank you very much. CIG doesn't have that for RSI. They have it for Crusader, right? Crusader seats are on rails. There's others, but for RSI, they have not done that. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of any other RSI ships, especially newer RSI ships, where the seat is on a rail that you sit in and then the seat pulls you really close to the front of the bridge. I don't think that's a thing. Jen and Tonic says Crusader and Drake. Yeah, that's all I can really think of. And with Drake, it seems to be primarily the seat pulls you up, right? So again, we have to look at what CIG has established with the Polaris, right? And they're pretty clear in what they've done with the Polaris. I think they're pretty happy with it. So I think that we're seeing that here. So expect a pilot on the left side, port side, a co-pilot on the right side, and a captain's chair in the middle. Okay. Now, the big question is what controls what? Okay. And I've heard everything this week. There's been a lot of discussion on the STARJUMP Discord. There's been a lot of discussion amongst other content creators, especially, ship-focused content creators. And I think this always sort of happens, and I know all of you in chat probably agree with this, where there seems to be this thinking that CIG is going to always surprise us and do something radically different with a ship. And I think that's always coming from a place of we're just always expecting something new and exciting. When the whole push for CIG ship teams, at least in my opinion, has been for them to start setting some real hard standards for ships, build out these kits for ships, and then apply those kits to newer ships within the same manufacturer line to build them faster and probably with less bugs and issues, right? So in terms of how that's going to control, I think it'll mirror exactly what is happening on the Polaris to a large degree. Okay. Now, the Idris is its own issue, and I'm going to put that aside for a minute. I do think CIG needs to fix that like really quickly, but we'll get to that in a minute. The Perseus has two. Let's switch back over to Hangar Link real quick. The ship has two primary dual turrets, okay? One up here and one down here, okay? Each one of these turrets, it's great we have this tool, isn't it? Each one of these turrets is a dual size 7 in the concept, although we've heard through various back doors that this has been moved up to a dual size 8 Medusa cannon, ballistic cannon. But they're dual and they're manned. This area here is actually glass, although it wasn't textured like that. But if we go to the RSI Perseus page, and we scroll down to, let's see here. It's one of the images right here. You can see very clearly on here that it's got the glass and the seat in there. These are manned turrets. Okay. It doesn't really matter what size they are. They can be size 8, size 7, size 9, whatever. They're manned, which means these are not, in my opinion, these are not going to be slave to the pilot. If no one's sitting in there, I don't think CIG's intention is for that. I think these are going to be purely manned turrets. This is going to be much like the Hammerhead, where if you want the full usage out of those turrets currently in game, you need to bring somebody. Now, I'm not saying that in the future, these won't be able to be computer bladed and controlled that way. They very well may do that. As a matter of fact, I anticipate CIG doing or taking steps to make the large capital ships and subcapitals even more soloable in the future. And I have reasons why I think they will do that. And I'm not arguing for it, but I think they will do that for a variety of reasons. But again, I think this turret, this one on top and the one on the bottom, are going to be manned. They're not going to be slave to pilot, and you are going to need someone in there to fire them. Okay. Now, let's go back to our other bridge seats. Let's talk about the torpedoes. The Perseus has, I think, actually, let's go back. I want to make sure I'm correct on this. It has 20 size 5 torpedoes. Okay, so 20 size 5 torpedoes. It's a decent amount of torpedoage right there, right? So 20 size 5 torpedoes. I think that could be likely fired by the co-pilot. Okay. Normally, here's the funny thing about that though. Normally, I would say that would not be the case. I would say that the torpedo would be, because I think there's a torpedo bay location on the gun deck. Okay. But why do I think they may change that part of the concept. There was some leaked conversations that came out. I don't want to 100% confirm these, by the way, but there was some leaked conversations that came out that stated that CIG may bring torpedo control to one of the bridge station seats in the Polaris. Okay, that was sort of a quality of life thing they were going to do. I think they were still going to have it to where you could control the torpedoes down into torpedo room, but from some of the backdoor conversations that supposedly happened, again, we should treat those a little bit suspiciously, but the idea was that some level of torpedo control would be brought to the bridge deck of the Polaris. I would love if you could do both. I would love to have torpedo control down in the control room and on the bridge. I think that would be great for the Polaris. I think with the Perseus, I could really easily see them giving torpedo control to the co-pilot and or based solely in the torpedo bay room, right? In whatever decision they make may give us some insight into what they're going to do with the Polaris, right? Because we did hear about some changes. Socially Confused says, I thought the torpedoes were always pilot controlled. I mean, it's been a while since I've flown the Polaris, but have they changed that? Is the Polaris torpedoes controllable from the pilot station? I didn't think they were. If they've changed that, then that is information I didn't have. Let me know in chat. It's Jojo TV. Jojo, I need to get you on a show one day, dude. I'd love to talk to you. Again, I love your content. Jojo says, I would love to see the torps made into size 6s. Size 5 torps are a bit weak at the moment, especially against ships the Perseus would go after. Well, I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of imagination to think that they would beef up the torpedoes if the guns have been upgraded, so or been beefed up as well. I mean, that makes sense. Socially Confused says I was talking about the Perseus. Okay, I hadn't heard that. The only thing I had heard was sort of this, where they say torpedo bay, a military-style launch bay, provides total control, and security for your crew. The idea there being that the torpedo control room is located down in the in more of the belly of the ship in this torpedo bay, where they're a little bit more protected, and they, again, as stated here in no uncertain terms, total control over the torpedoes being fired. Again, I like that. I like that the Polaris has them too, but there are changes I would make. Okay, here's the changes I would make. Let's start with the Polaris. I would give one of the seats on the bridge torpedo control as well as a secondary, with the control console down in the torpedo room being the primary torpedo control station. With that torpedo control station, I would make it a seat. The CIG does need to get a seat in there, and instead of standing and falling all around. And then I think there should be advantages and disadvantages. So I think in the in the Polaris, down in the torpedo bay, that control station, I think, would be cool if you could fire all 4 torpedoes literally simultaneously, all 4 out. And then the torpedo control station on the bridge, maybe it has slightly less control over them, where it can fire the torpedoes, but it's more in a staggered column, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there's a slight difference between how you're firing them. I would love for them to bring that same sort of vibe to the Perseus, where yes, the Perseus can fire those torpedoes from the bridge, but it does it in a staggered way. And the control station down in the torpedo bay could fire them simultaneously. So boom, boom, 2 at a time each time, because I believe the Perseus has 2 torpedo tubes. I would love to see, though, that like differentiation between the function of the weapon based off where it's being controlled from, right? So different control stations giving you slightly different levels of control. Now, Uplink has an interesting comment here. Uplink says, I think that might be too complex complex either for players to grasp or for CIG to implement at the moment. You could be right. On the player thing, though, I agree with you. I think there's always a point where the game becomes so nuanced that there's this like real high bar to entry for new players. So I totally agree with you on that. There are ways to solve that, though, and I think that could be through more contextualized information on the HUDs, on our MFDs. CIG has never shown anything like that, though, beyond engineering. We haven't gotten any additional information in the form of those MFDs, though. So you're not wrong. I would just love to see differences like that, personally, right? So let's keep going here. So I think one of those seats could get torpedo control, possibly. More likely, though, what's more likely is the co-pilot seat will be able to take control of one of the remote turrets. Okay, that's what's more likely. Okay, I do believe the Perseus, let's switch back over here. Does it have, let's see here. Let's see here, stand by everyone. Let me look. So lower turret access, it's got upper turret access, torpedo bay, crew quarters, mess hall. Is there a place, let me look at the, let's read the brochure real quick. Did I say blowsure? It's the blowsure, everybody. Let's see. Let's go to firepower here. I'm looking for something here. Some manual turrets, top and bottom. Again, we think those are going to be okay. So remote turret says here, whether on patrol, anchoring a blockade, or engaging in active assault, the Perseus's historically inspired onboard defense systems hark back to a time when human ships couldn't rely on shields or shields to stay in one piece. Twin ballistic Gatling guns can be fully automated or remotely controlled to keep incoming ordnance at bay, while a military-inspired launch bay packs up to 20 size 5 torps. Okay, so there's been some indications that there's going to be an additional remote turret on the ship. I believe those remote turrets are also going to be upgunned a little bit, and I'm sure the ship is going to have some PDCs, possibly 2 PDCs on it, possibly 3. So what's more likely what's more likely from this co-pilot seat is you're going to be able to control the manual, or one of the manual turrets, one of the remote turrets, and it's probably going to be the one on the top. Right? Jack Boom TV says, Grim, Idris pilot can do everything and is fun. They need to do the same for the Perseus and the rest. If multi-crew lovers want to do the same in it, same in group, they can do it. Yeah, so Jack Boom, let's go back to that conversation real quick. So currently there's an issue. The issue is that the Idris can pilot fire its weapons, the size 10 torps, the size 10 laser, the size 10 railgun, all that. The pilot can control that. Putting aside whether I think you should be able to do that or not, I can almost guarantee you that is going to be changed. Okay. Why would it be changed? Why would it need to be changed? I guess is a good question, right? So the entire reason, and I don't know this for a fact, this is speculation on my my thinking. Jojo, it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this. But in my opinion, the reason why the Idris is able to be pilot, the weapon's pilot controlled, is that is a byproduct of how the Idris was brought into the PU for events like Xenothreat and others, where they would drop NPCs in there in just seats with no interior, and those NPCs had to be able, use the NPC, the AI logic to fire the weapons, pilot the ship, all that kind of stuff. I think it's literally just a byproduct of how those ships were set up for the PU initially, when they were just put in as like enemy bad guy ships that we had to take down. By putting the Idris in game as is with those weapons, those size 10s being pilot controlled is a really puts the Idris in a weird place and puts the Polaris and probably the Perseus in a weird place too. It just, it really makes no sense, right? So one of the things that happened when the Idris first came out, first went to the PU, and I own an Idris, okay? So I'm not saying this out of any sort of Idris hate. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is ridiculous. This needs to be fixed, right? We need to be able to do this. Now, here's the funny thing, going back to that torpedo discussion. I'm not even saying it should have, it shouldn't have, the pilot shouldn't have access to fire the weapons. But going back to my torpedo thing, I think the pilot should have some sort of limited weapon access. So let's go back to it. Let's say if you're sitting in a gunner seat of the Idris and you're on, the Idris you're flying has a K kit installed. So it has the Exodus laser beam. If you're in a gunner seat that controls that, I think you should be able to fire that laser and leave it on for, let's say it's, I don't know, 60 seconds, right? Just pick a round number. But if you're the pilot and do it, I think you should be limited to 10 seconds or 15 seconds or however limitation you want to put in there to balance the multi-role usage of or the multi-crew usage of the ship versus it being a one-man killing machine, right? Same thing with the Polaris. I'm not against the pilot being able to fire the torpedoes, but there should be a severe cooldown when they do it. So maybe the pilot can fire one torpedo and then has to wait, however many seconds before they can fire a second torpedo, wait another number of seconds, right? There's got to be some pluses and minuses here. Currently, you have ships like the Polaris where you do need a crew to adequately make that ship lethal. And then you counter that with an Idris that one person can do everything pretty much. It's just really, really imbalanced. I do hope we see CIG come in and balance that soon, only because I do think it creates an unrealistic expectation for the players. So if there's any of you in chat that are like, no, I think the Idris should stay like that, right? The Idris should stay as is. Pilots should be able to control everything. I don't blame you for thinking that because CIG put it into the game and people have now gotten used to that, right? So again, that's why I think ultimately they should go back and fix that as soon as possible so as not to get unreal expectations for ships like the Idris to new players coming to the project who maybe yet to spend that big ticket, spend the money on that big ticket ship. Jojo says, yeah, the Idris main weapon is an interesting problem for CIG that CIG needs to solve. Maybe they need to slow the Idris even more so it's harder to aim the railgun laser, although it's already realistic. Yeah, I honestly think it's a charge issue. I think based off the crew seat you're sitting in, you should have access to different levels of power of the weapon. And here's the thing. There may be some people out there. Soundboy, thank you for that follow earlier, though. I don't know if I called that one out. Thank you very much. There's going to be some people in there that go, well, that seems silly. That seems a little gamey. Why would the pilot have an artificial limitation? Because it is a game. It is a game. And we need some limitations. Okay? This whole idea of keeping things ultra realistic makes no sense to me, and it never did, because you don't play the game at how someone would truly exist in that world, right? So like when the Milsim unit that I used to run with in Arma 3 would play Arma, yes, we would play it hyper realistic, but you still didn't play, you still didn't approach a situation or an objective how a real soldier would, because you don't have any fear of dying. You have a concern about dying or getting killed, but you'll either respawn, or even if respawns are turned off, it's just a game and you'll be waking up the next morning, right? People do not play how they normally would play. People will push the envelope. So that in and of itself refocuses the narrative on this is a game and there needs to be limitations, pluses and minuses put in to balance things, right? That's why this whole realistic argument falls apart for me. And again, this is because I played so many years of hardcore Arma 3 milsim that I can tell you right now, no one plays video games like they approach situations in real life. It just does not happen, right? One of my favorite guns to shoot in Arma 3 is the Honey Badger. I own a real Honey Badger, and I can promise you I treat that real Honey Badger a lot differently than I treat my Honey Badger in Arma 3. Let's just put it that way. Dillman has a question, says, how do you think they will fold in the history and inspiration of the Perseus into the modern design? The design from the sneak peek looks like new RSI. I'd like to see some history. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It looks super new. It looks like a new ship. I think what they're going to do is sort of switch the lore out where these are older Perseuses that have just been updated. RSI did a pass on them, brought in new stuff, new interior sections, updated a lot of stuff. That's not unheard of either. Airplanes like the B-52 and stuff, those are planes that have been around for 70 years and have been active in every confrontation the U.S. has ever been in, have been constantly updated with the newest technology. So that's not unheard of. Hey, it's the Info Runners Execute. I hope you're well, dude. Nice to see you. Hope everything is well with you. I just caught your latest SHIV Buyer's Guide episode. I loved it. Y'all didn't talk too bad about my new favorite ship, so that's good. So yeah, that's not unheard of for them to update ships. So I think that's the direction they'll go with this one. I personally wish it was going to carry over some like more historical vibes, but I voiced concerns about this all the way back when the Polaris first came out. I'm like, well, I'm really confused because the Polaris is very new and the Perseus is supposed to be very old. How are they going to bridge that gap? And in conversations with other people in the STARJUMP Discord and stuff, it just didn't make any sense. I was like, no, this is going to be like a newer version of the Perseus or one that's been outfitted with more advanced parts and pieces. So, hey, it's STARJUMP Starlet in chat. Everyone give Starlet a big 07. At the beginning of this episode, we were talking about STARJUMP Fleet Viewer and the discussions going on behind the scenes on giving it a new breath of life, giving it a facelift, possibly bringing some new features and stuff to it. I informed everyone, if you have ideas, make sure you go to the STARJUMP Discord. There's a Hangar Link suggestions and a Fleet Viewer suggestions channel. Put your suggestion in there. We probably won't reply because I like to leave it with no reply so that I can scan back through it easily and pull ones that are realistic. But leave stuff in there. You may not hear from us, but leave your thoughts and opinions in there. I may pull them. Those get put into a private STARJUMP Fleet Viewer development Discord that a few people are in, and it will be added to the list of cool shit we can possibly bring to it. But yes, everyone gives Starlet an 07. She does a lot of amazing hard work on Fleet Viewer, and we love her. All right. Let's see here. Keith Burnett says, CIG, John Crew, I believe, mentioned that there was a ship coming with a new type of PDC. I'm fairly sure it's the Perseus and its auto size 3 turrets. Will this introduce an auto turret blade? Possibly. I mean, I was just saying in our Discord today that I really hope we're getting turret blades soon. I don't really see any reason why they'd be held back, so I do hope they're coming. I was thinking that the new PDC is possibly a dual-mounted turret. Like, it's a PDC, but it has 2 guns on it instead of the 1. But we'll see. I'm not expecting anything wildly crazy, though. But we'll see. Maybe it's a laser beam weapon version. I don't know. Okay, so going back to our image here, I'm pretty confident that CIG is not throwing any, like, major surprises our way. The whole point of the kits, the ship kits, the whole point of their new approach to developing these manufacturing lines is to create efficiencies and carry things over from ship to ship to ship. Okay, so it makes sense that the Perseus bridge will follow the same form and function that the Polaris bridge has. So this left seat here, I fully expect that to be the pilot seat. Right seat will be co-pilot seat. Right seat will probably gain remote turret control. Okay, the middle seat I am expecting to be probably what you're thinking, a command seat. Okay, I think that's what's going to be. If they want to bring additional control to that, that would be great. In the future, when we do get engineering and resource management, I do think those command seats are going to be able to access engineering panels or on their MFDs possibly in the future. Maybe we'll see, but I do see that being a thing, or at the very least being able to control some ship permissions, right? Farlson, thank you for the follow. Appreciate you. So that's my thinking there. That's my thinking there. I've heard a lot of crazy things over the last few days on different shows. Well, where like, oh, this ship, the seat's going to slide up on rails and all this. I don't think any of that's true. I think it's going to very much follow the Polaris way of doing things. Right? We can see the glass MFDs that are literally copied from the Polaris. I guarantee these seats are from the Polaris, and that's going to be how it is. Okay, so let's move along. I'm going to move to, let me move a few things around here. Sorry. What is this? Okay, I'll move this over. So yeah, we talked a lot about my expectations with the Perseus. I do think, again, that it is the ship we are seeing in that preview. I don't think there's really any mystery there. I do not expect CIG to surprise drop a large ship, 100 plus meters at IAE, and that is primarily because of how many large ships are currently in development. Going back to the jump point, though, I wanted to peruse this to see if there was any lessons that we could sort of take away from this. I don't think there is. There was a lot of really interesting designs, though, in some of these original concept images. If you look at option B3 here, this was one of the ones that originally leaked out, if you remember. It was one of the original sketches, I think, that popped up on Pipeline and stuff. I do think there's some really interesting sort of design studies here. Ultimately, CIG made the wise decision and went with the one they did, which I think is an excellent design. I really like this one here, though. This A1. This is something I would love for them to go forward with on some ship in the future. I just love that. Really cool. Sandgroper says, question, with Squadron 42 starting the final stretch, do you think we will see the Squadron 42 alien ships dropping at next year's Alien Week? Well, they just reminded us that those are coming with Squadron 42 in the Stinger Q&A, so I'm going with that for now, Sandgroper. I do hope that changes. So, going to the ship's cutaway here, there's a couple interesting things I want to see. We know the ship has a lift, right? We've seen that. The lift is here. This is how vehicles get in and out. It's interesting to see that they had a version in the past, though, that actually had a ramp that would go down the rear. I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, those are old, though, and outdated. These are the more newer cutaways here, so you can very clearly see what they've done. The bottom here, though, is where you'll be able to load cargo. You're going to be able to load vehicles, all that kind of stuff, bring them up into the cargo bay. There's like a gantry way that walks across it here. See, Jojo says, also, Graham, what do you think about the Perseus size increase? There's been some interesting measurements done using the sneak peeks we have that seem to indicate it's grown by 110 to 120 meters. Yeah, I can speak to that real quick. That seems logical to me, and primarily for one reason. I feel like the original Perseus, now we never saw any super detailed engineering cutaways, but I always felt like the Perseus lacked the appropriate amount of engineering space, like a proper engineering area of the ship. There was an area denoted, I think it was like back here in this upper image, it's like back here, that always felt really odd to me. I felt like there should be more of a room back here where the engines were. So I don't 100% know, but I feel like that was a little bit of lapse in consideration. So I do think it's feasible that the ship has grown to you know, 110, 120 meters. Again, the ship's 100 meters now. It could grow to 110, 120, and still be in that sweet spot, large ship range, sort of sitting in there with the hammerhead, with the carrack, kind of sitting right in that sweet spot. But I don't think it'll grow much bigger than that. If it has grown, I suspect it's like 110, 115. I don't actually even see it getting up to 120, to be totally honest with you. Uplink says, could you zoom in on that bridge block out on page 23? Yes, page 23. We're on it here. Let me zoom into the bridge block out. You can see here, this bridge looks kind of smaller than what we have now. Again, I think some of that's been extended with the new bridge area, since it's not using such sharp, aggressive lines now, and they've sort of rounded some of that bridge area out with the canopy we saw in that first sneak peek. I think that gives them a lot more room to sort of, you know, feel out the space. So I did like this original bridge, though, and I've been pretty vocal that I really like the large consoles. What are the ships that have large consoles? Well, MISC ships do. We've seen that in, you know, but their consoles are sort of built into the bridge, like, or sort of the dash of the ships, right? What else has big sort of front consoles? Crusader kind of has those console areas in a way. They've taken them away from Anvil ships. They've taken them away, or taken them away from the Carrack. I guess it'll be interesting to see what they do with the Liberator. RSI, they've removed all the consoles. The Polaris and obviously the Perseus now don't have the big sort of bridge consoles. Aegis still has the consoles, kind of old school, right? I really hope they bring the consoles into the Pioneer. All that we've seen of the Pioneer so far indicates that there's like big control consoles. So again, I hope they bring some of that over. But yeah, it remains to be. I mean, obviously this is, you know, this is old imagery here. So expect this to be changed to some degree. Again, looking down here, we have habitation, sort of a crew hangout room. So this is general habitation. I think this is the captain's quarters back here, if I remember correctly. I forget what all these rooms are. Yeah, there's our captain's room. But ultimately, what all this means is that I did feel like there was a bit of an unsubstantial engineering area. So I think this over here was sort of relegated to engineering. Because this is captain's quarters. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that up there, those are the torpedo tubes, front turret access. There just seemed to be a lack of an engineering space beyond this. So I could see the ship being lengthened to account for that. I don't think the ship is getting a medical bay. I know some people were mentioning that. I don't think that's the case. But a bigger, more pronounced engineering wing on a large ship when they're getting ready to release engineering to us, that seems likely. So yeah, I think it could have grown. Again, just more imagery. The original concierge paint, by the way, for the Perseus is this paint here. I think it's what's it called, Thundercloud, War Thunder, I forget, something like that. But it's a really cool paint. It uses sort of that dazzle camouflage that they used on ships back in the day for like World War II and stuff. They may still use it now on Navy ships and stuff, but it's sort of that dazzle camouflage that's supposed to break up the lines and contours and stuff. So really cool. You won't be able to buy that paint when the ship goes live. I think that was a concierge only or concept only paint. But pretty cool regardless. Some additional images from inside the ship. I know a lot of you have seen these on the website, so we don't need to belabor those too much. I thought we'd go over the, remind ourselves of the Q&A of the Perseus here. It says here, the Desai 7 guns use bespoke ammunition, and how much ammo can the gunboat carry? The brochure picture implies dedicated ballistic ammo loaders. below the turret. Can we customize the rounds to be either high explosive or armor penetrating rounds like the in real life battle tanks? Can choose between battles. Will size 7 guns be swappable, or are they locked like on the Ares? Answer there was the main turret weapons on the Perseus are currently planned to be bespoke size 7s with customizable ammo types to provide flexibility. Now let me counter that to one small degree. And Farrelson, thank you for the follow. By the way, everyone, don't forget to get in on the giveaway. The Gleam link is right there in chat. You can get in to win a SHIV, Gray Market SHIV, and CitizenCon goodies pack. We're going to give that away live on stream tonight. So let's talk about those bespoke weapons. Heavily hinted at the Ship Showdown Q&A was that we're going to be able to sort of swap out one bespoke weapon for a different type of bespoke weapon, right? And essentially those weapons, they're still bespoke because they're limited and custom fit to that ship, but we're going to get more options. So for example, the Ares Inferno maybe has a different type of ballistic weapon that can go in it, or some other type of, maybe a beam weapon that can drop in where the ballistic weapon is. Or perhaps it's like on ships like the Kruger Wolf that has the Gatling guns, the bespoke Gatling guns. Maybe those can be switched out with bespoke energy weapons, whatever. It's possible that CIG is still planning on doing the customizable rounds, right? The customizable ammo types, but it's also possible that they intend for those ammo types to be fired by bespoke weapons. Okay, let me go a little bit more into that. And again, I'm speculating wildly here. I don't know if they're going to do anything like this. I'm not saying it would be a good thing or a bad thing either. But it's possible the size 8 Medusa cannons that we assume are the new standard bearer for the Perseus fires the ballistic high penetration heat round sort of ammo, but maybe you switch those Medusa cannons out for a size 8 Chupacabra cannon, and then that can fire maybe some sort of distortion round or some sort of thing. So it would be a different type of round, a different type of ammo, but that different type of ammo has to be fired through a different type of weapon. Maybe. I really don't know. I'm speculating wildly here, right? Victoria, nice to see you in chat. Hope you're doing well. We don't really know how they're going to handle that, but we haven't heard too much about the other ammos being worked on. There was a little bit of progress report information about like some additional ammo types a few years back, maybe it was 2 years back, where they talked about distortion ammo and other things. But what they didn't say was that if all those ammo types will be able to be fired out of the same weapon system, or if the weapon system would have to change as well, right? Which I think is, when I think about CIG, it seems like something they would do. Seems like something they would do. Says, how far along is this ship? What's the current stage within the pipeline? It says the Perseus is the concept stage. It isn't in production in the vehicle pipeline at this time. Well, now we know it is, and it's almost done. It says it is a heavily armored for its size and designed to take a beating from other ships, but isn't as strong as a capital ship. Now remember, this is a sub-capital ship, 100 meters. And I've said this from the very beginning of the concept. One way you can sort of think about this ship is it's a brawler, right? It's supposed to get out in the fight. It's a little bit like the Paladin in a way. It's supposed to get in there, take a beating, take a bit of an ass whooping, and still be effective on target, right? Excuse says, what the F is a Chupacabra? It's a mythical creature. I just made up a canon name. Says here, what are those pylons on the side of the ship next to the right of the docking collar supposed to be for? It says currently they're decorative. Rule of cool. Not everything has to have a purpose, so rule of cool. says here, what is the largest ship that size 7 guns will be effective against? For example, how effective will they be against large ships like the Polaris, 890 Idris, or Javelin? Says here they're expected to be effective against all large-sized ships. If targeting critical areas on capital ships, they should provide similar effectiveness as the Crusader Ares size 7 weapon. Now, we already know that the ship is probably getting size 8s, so getting upgunned a little bit. That means CIG may be rethinking where they want this ship to play in the battle, right? Maybe CIG is looking at things where they want ships like the Hammerhead to deal with anti-fighter stuff. They want the Paladin to be kind of the ship that goes after your medium to large, smaller large ships, so Connies and stuff like that. And then maybe they're looking at the Perseus to be that ship that's going after things a little larger than that, right? So Starlancer Tax, maybe Polaris, stuff like that, right? But I think there'll be an evolution there. Again, one thing I will say is when this ship comes out, just like there is with the SHIV and the Stinger and the Paladin, there's going to be an initial reaction to its hit points, its health pool. Is going to be an initial reaction to its performance metrics, its yaw, its acceleration, its top speeds, all that stuff. There's going to be an initial reaction to its DPS, how much damage it can dish out, even its size, even the weapon size hard points. All that should really be looked at, honestly, as a grain of salt until we get to 1.0. CIG has already showed us time and time and time and time again that they are willing to change those things, and sometimes drastically, right? So all those performance metrics, all those DPS metrics on all these ships, you should consider them, obviously, but I wouldn't make a purchase based off them, or I think you'll sometimes be disappointed, right? Purchase a ship because of its role. If you want a gunship that's kind of a brawler, the Perseus is they're probably going to target that for the Perseus regardless of where its performance metrics and weapons metrics land. I think overall CIG has a role they want the ship to play. Right? So whenever I watch any sort of shows on ships or see any discussions on ships where people are getting into the nuances of those numbers, I'm always a little bit like, it's good to talk about that for sure, but it's so likely to be changed before we get to 1.0 that it kind of makes for a little bit of a useless conversation in terms of, especially in terms of like, should you buy the ship or consider the ship or do the grind to earn it in game? Because again, those things are going to change. And I would say that even applies to industrial ships. How many times here lately have we seen with salvage ships where they've changed the speed of salvaging? How fast the salvage lasers can scrape a ship, right? We've seen them change it. XQ says, I'm disappointed with how the Perseus is looking, losing its older look, especially how awesome the Paladin looks with that older styling. Yeah, it's interesting. I think the funny thing is to me is I guess I might look at it a little differently in that the Paladin is so hyper detailed, because I agree with what you said in your Paladin buyer's guide, by the way. The Paladin is definitely, and like all these new ships, they're setting a standard for ships going forward, right? In terms of detail. But they've given the Paladin so much detail that it actually looks like a very modern ship just because it's so like considered, all the lines and everything. Where ships, and again, this is more of a psychological thing, not necessarily a design thing, but where you take a ship like the Carrack and it doesn't have a lot of those details, it doesn't have a lot of that nuance and overlapping panels and palm decals and all that stuff, and it almost feels old. You know what I mean? So I don't know where the Paladin sits in lore, actually. You may know that better, Execute. But just from a visual standpoint, the Paladin looks very new to me. I think I will say this. I will say that a lot of people really fell in love with sort of the simplicity of the exterior of the Perseus. They felt it had a very armored look to it. And I agree with that. The more detail that has come into the Perseus, I think it's sort of lost a little bit of that. But I guess I want to see what that final art pass on the Perseus looks like. But it's very possible that what you're saying is exactly right, Execute, where the Perseus is sort of shifted from that sort of old, old school RSI, almost like low tech look into something that's very detailed, very complicated, with a lot of new technology. I mean, even if you go back to this image here, just those glass panels alone, again, very reminiscent. I think they're exact lifts, actually, not even reminiscent. Very much exact lifts of the MFDs we have in the Polaris. And the Polaris is supposed to be the newest RSI ship in lore. I don't know if it's newer than like the Meteor and stuff in lore, but from a capital ship standpoint, the Polaris is like the newest capital ship from a lore perspective currently. So again, this whole what are the weapons effective against? We just need to see what those new weapons are, because obviously they possibly moved to size 8, possibly can carry some unique ammo types. We'll have to see. XQ says, Paladin feels like a flying tank. This Perseus is looking like a glass coffin. That should be on the marketing materials. Fly the new glass coffin from RSI. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I do think Anvil ships in general, I've always felt like the larger ones, the Valkyrie, the Asgard now, which is one of my favorite ships, the Paladin, and even going up to the Carrack and the Liberator. There's a very sort of armored, bulky, heavy look to their ships. They look heavy, right? They look like a 10-ton brick shithouse. Where RSI, I feel like CIG is sort of, I feel like with RSI, they're trying to lean into like ultra modern, ultra high tech, advanced, like using advanced materials, advanced. They're like the more human version of like the consolidated Outland tech, right? Or is it the MISC tech, right? Where it's supposed to be a little lighter, a little sleeker, a little bit more leaning into the wind. Again, I think that is spelled out, and I know a lot of people call it the Dorito look. I call it the arrowhead look, but sort of the arrowhead look of these ships. They're sort of meant to be aggressive, but in a different way than the Anvil ships. So I think the Anvil and RSI have a really interesting sort of like dichotomy going on between their two art styles. We really need that updated style guide layout for the manufacturers. Says here, does it have an armory or weapons rack, medical facilities, or facilities for troop carrying? It says here, in lore, the ship was not designed to carry a rover. It's more of a happy accident that it can. It has no armory. That'll probably be changed. It probably will get an armory of some sort. Or troop carrying abilities. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't understand why you'd have troop carrying capabilities, honestly. Its typical role is fleet defense, so it would rely on other ships in the fleet for its medical needs. I think that's okay too. Again, this is why we have ships like the Apollo with a ship-to-ship airlock. You know what I mean? It's why we have that. Not every ship should get a medical bay. StarJump Ender says RSI is the ships with a swimmer's build, where Anvil's the ships with the lifter's build. Yeah, I mean that's a great. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. My mic is loose here. I think it's a great analogy. Sorry everyone. Hopefully I'm not peaking on my audio. I've got my Wave XLR here and making sure the audio is okay. But yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. Is the cargo elevator the only entrance into a landed Perseus, or is there a dedicated entrance for the personnel? It says there is a dedicated personnel entrance located on the bottom of the ship to the rear behind the cargo elevator. Yeah, I imagine there would be. I think CIG is trying to be cognizant of that moving forward. So there will be a dedicated personnel entry all the way up into the ship, very much like the Polaris has. which I think on the Polaris, they made that elevator a little faster, if I'm not wrong. So here, why does the exterior appear to have 2 doors whilst only 1 airlock? Is it meant to have only 1 airlock? And is it just for symmetry, or does that other side have a function? It says here there's no functionality there and was just purely done for symmetry. So they're just talking about this little part and piece over here. So the ship will dock on the port side, as it should. So SEM speed, I'm not even reading that again because the speeds and the numbers change all the time. They're really not, to me, they're not worth talking about. It says here, will it have pilot controlled weapons? Will both big man turrets be able to link to the pilot via computer blades if the crew gets sick? It's an odd way of asking that question. It says here the pilot, okay, here we go, some answers. Although I think this possibly might change again. It says here the pilot will have access to the torpedoes and some of the other bridge stations will be able to control weapons. So pilot will not be able to control weapons, but may be able to have access to the torpedoes. Like other ships with manned turrets, they're designed to be human operated. However, as a fallback, they will be able to be NPC crewed or equipped with a computer blade in the future. So for that computer blade thing, we still need 2 things that are really important, everybody. We need computers and we need the blades to go in them. Okay, we need those. We've gotten avionics blades before, but we haven't gotten computer blades, and those avionics blades have been put into, well, the avionics blades, I guess, go into the computers. That's all done through the vehicle manager. They'll probably do the same thing with these blades here, but those blades could go on the actual weapon system. So when you go into weapons in your ship, you outfit the turret, there may be an area there marked off for blades so that you can apply a blade specifically to a turret. Okay. I would imagine that blade has some sort of power draw as well, I would assume. So yeah, pilot may be controlling torpedoes. But I wouldn't bet my house on it. I could see CIG changing that. People speculate that this ship will be able to ram enemy ships as seen in the concept art image. Is this the plan? Will the front feature heavy-duty armor? It says the concept art depicts the Perseus moving through the wreck of a hammerhead, not ramming it, people. So, says here, according to the Perseus IAE page, states nearly identical to the historic military original. Get to know the new Perseus. What makes this Perseus different from the military original? And will players be able to acquire the military original game in the future? Let's see here. So nearly identical to the historic military original. So yeah, maybe this is a newer version. So it sounds like they kind of put that back door for themselves in there, right? Where this could technically be just an updated version of the original Perseus, right? Hi, Alec, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Okay, and these are more just automated turret things here. So, RSI Perseus. We're going to move on here, but again, a ship that is definitely coming at IAE. While we can say nothing with 100% certainty, I think you could put this one clearly at like 99% certainty. And it is a ship that I personally don't see it throwing a lot of surprises at us. I think it's going to follow the Polaris, the Polaris template. Where CIG could throw some surprises at us with this ship, though, is through those guns, through those 2-man turrets, those bespoke weapon switch outs, and possibly the custom ammunition. Now, I would say that if custom ammunition is coming, I think it would come from more than just the Perseus. I could see ships like the Wolf or ships like the Meteor that have bespoke weapons as well, getting maybe additional ammunition types. We'll have to see about that. I would assume if they're going to do that, we'll hear some leakage about that, though. That's what I would assume. Real quick. Let's see here. Let me put my headset on. I'm going to put my headset on here for a second. Oh, there's Execute. Execute, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. So,
I'm watching you on my screen. How are you doing?
um, Perseus. So you're not as excited about the Perseus as you once were, then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. And it's actually the Paladin that's kind of done it for me. Like this thing, like I'm just looking at the lore right now. It says the Perseus was constructed in 2050-20,
Yeah.
and then what are we, 2950 something. So that's like what 400 years ago type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then they retired it in shit, I had the 2863, and then in 2956, which is like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
during the Vandal War, that's when Bishop asked him to bring it back. So I don't know, like it just feels like when you look at that photo, you tell me if you feel any different. It just felt cheap when I looked at it and went, that's just Zeus all through the cockpit.
Yeah, and here's the thing, we've talked a lot about here's the thing. I guess I'm withholding some of my judgment. And by the way, Chad, I do see some of the questions come in. I am going to get to your questions. I do not have the bot running, and it was my own fault. I didn't get a hold of Piggles. But the
He told me he's had trouble getting a hold of you. So
okay, yeah. My schedule lately has just been crazy. So what I would say is that I'm withholding judgment. I do want to see, obviously, a more proper reveal of the ship. What I've seen so far, I do like, but I'm one of those people that I'll fully admit that when I see new ship stuff, I get excited. You know what I mean? It's almost like
mm,
an initial
mm.
reaction where you just go, "Ooh, what is that? New shinies." You know what I mean? And then it's like
Yeah,
after the ship sits a little bit, then I start coming to realizations and start going, "Oh, okay, that ship is
yeah.
cool, but not for me," or "I don't like this ship for various reasons." A good example, that's the Starlancer. I
Mm-hmm,
really loved the Starlancer Max when it came out. I used it through several of the events of this past year and loved it. But
mm-hmm,
when I used it through those events, while it did great for some things, some of its weaknesses really got a spotlight shown on it from me. You know what I mean? And just how I interacted with
mm-hmm,
the ship. And I came to the realization that the Starlancer's great. It's great for some people. For how I
mm-hmm.
play the game, how I utilize the ships, how I move cargo, how I do other things, it's just not the right ship for me. You know what I mean? Sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I think
I
I'm sitting there with
I
the
I,
Perseus.
I kind of had the same thing with the Silencer, but I thought that from the gate
Right.
because I could see where it was
Right.
going.
And there's some
I
ships
think
where
it's
you
all
do feel
fixable
like that.
though.
Right out the
Yeah, I
gate,
do
there's
think
a
it's
lot of ships like that.
yeah, I do think the Silencer is totally fixable. It just got some massive flaws that need to
Yeah.
be fixed.
I mean, a
Getting back
good,
to the Perseus,
yeah.
this image you've got here, right? I look at the original concept images and it has these massive metal plates.
Hmm.
When I talk to people about this, I talk about Ned Kelly. Now you can look up Ned Kelly armor on Google if you want to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But he had these massive metal plates that he essentially affixed to himself, and he was just like this walking behemoth with literally like a bucket on his head,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same thing in this. Like I look at this and I look at the paladin and I see this as an armored, like an up armored paladin with
Hmm.
those massive flat plates.
Yeah.
And as long as they retain that look, I'll be okay. But what I'm hoping for, and this is my last kind of hope, is you know how you kind of see the Zeus throughout the cockpit.
Yeah.
I want them to have looked like it's mishmash, like they've gone through and just retrofitted certain areas that you know a military ship how it's more functional than looks.
Yeah.
So they've just updated certain areas that needed the tech updated, but then other areas it's heaps older. Like that would be that like almost like it's a junker ship, but they took the really old one and updated it to the new one. That I could live with,
Yeah.
right? Where it's been retrofitted in parts because that tells a story.
Yeah.
But if it's just literally a Zeus on the inside, no, you can keep that.
Yeah, and real quick, thank you, Hylick and Captain Boomer for the follows. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I see that point, and I agree with it. I will say real quick, here we got two questions. They're sort of related here. Mark Flass's
Yeah.
question: is there a means by which the Polaris/Perseus can have their torpedo ordnance magazines reloaded during operations? Is a size 8 torpedo larger or smaller than its 32 SCU crate? Well, size aside, you can load torpedoes into the magazine of the Polaris from your cargo bay
Hmm.
with tractor beams. You can do it. I'll be the first to say it seems like a wild loading procedure for a complicated warship, but that
Mm.
aside, you can do it. I would expect possibly some sort of scenario similar to that. The Perseus again, going back to some of the stuff that I've been hearing about the Perseus, this is sort of the downside, though, to these kits, right? These ship kits that are
Mm.
coming, and VMXEO, I don't think he's in the show tonight because he's got something early in the morning, but he was just telling me of another manufacturer that just got its kit added to the game files. I forget which manufacturer it
Mm.
was, but hey, Papa Juggernaut, I hope you're well, buddy. But the downside to the upside to those kits is that they're going to be able to make ships faster. And it's very clear that during the white box phase of those ships, the ships are getting much more detail in their white box phase. The downside to those kits are we're going to start seeing less and less surprises with some of these ships. They're going to be the type of
Yeah.
things where you're going to see sort of the same things that in like the Polaris as you do the Perseus and probably the next RSI
Mm.
big ship. And that's going to be for every manufacturer.
Yeah.
There's going to be bad with that, meaning that some bad things you see in some of those ships are going to get carried on to the next ship and the next ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
I agree.
is
I agree.
part of it.
I think RSI though is the one that has to set the standard, and what I mean by that is we look at the lore of say Anvil. Anvil is 600 years old, right? And
Mhm.
we've got Jace Aerospace, and we've got a Hurricane that's really a Jace Aerospace design,
Yeah.
and we've got the F8. So we've got two heavy fighters, completely different in how they approach it, right?
Yeah.
Now you take RSI and you expand that out to 900 years,
Mhm.
and you can start to see there are some difference in stylings there. But I would hope that this is one of the older ones, not one of the newer ones, because as you saw, it was what 500 to 600 years ago.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of RSI there, all right? So it needs, maybe it could be a mishmash of the two extremes,
Mhm.
but RSI probably, just due to its age, it probably needs 3 separate designs.
Well, and
Where, you
yeah.
know,
And Papa Juggernaut, tonight is, well, the voice you're hearing, the disembodied voice is Execute. I got his little logo up on screen there. Execute just jumped in the chat. He always, for those of you that may wonder, if you're not already a fan of Inforunners, obviously go check them out. But if you ever wonder why Execute and sometimes other people like VMXEO and Art and Ender sometimes jump into chat, is because when those people do things, especially Execute, I'm always welcome to jump in and disturb their shows. So I always love when they jump in mine. Me and Execute have talked about this many, many times. We love the back and forth. We love the conversation.
yeah, man.
Papa Juggernaut, I definitely would love to get you on the show one day, dude. You're always been really awesome to me as well. Here's another thing I'll point out too is that I think that this is so. The Polaris, I bring up the Polaris a lot, and I've said many, many times on streams that I think the Polaris exterior is like a high watermark for CIG, but it's also a little bit of an Achilles heel, where when the Idris came to the verse, I was very excited, but I gotta be honest with you, I was also a little bit like, God, the Idris looks terrible on the exterior. You know what I mean? Because the Polaris looks so good. And I wonder to some degree if the Polaris puts them in a weird place where they've now elevated the exterior detail so much that on ships like the Perseus coming out, there's this expectation by the ship team that like we got to cram detail and fidelity and fidelity, almost where
Yeah.
they move away from like simple broad plates of armor where there's got to be all these parts and pieces. I don't know, but I could see how that sort of gets in their head where, okay, we're coming out with the next big exciting RSI ship. We need to hit that Polaris barrier. You know what I mean?
Well, you and I talked about this. Some ways the Polaris was a little too busy, like just
Almost a
little
little
bit.
too busy. And here's the thing, I love the Polaris exterior. I think it was amazing. But if they wanted to pull it back 10%, I don't think it'd hurt it.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah. And even if you look at this photo, I think most of us would agree that top bridge area is very Polaris inspired, but the bottom seems different. It does feel a little different, and that is my one hope, that they get those armor plates right. Just real quick too, I'm thinking of it. I totally agree with you about the dual PDCs, by the way. That's exactly how I think they are. I think they're double the power, but you've only got to kill one to kill it.
Right.
So it makes it like a glass cannon. So yeah, it's a design thing from the design team.
And going back to the detail thing real quick, just because we're sort of talking about look here, the more fidelity and complex parts and greebling and parts and pieces you add to these ships, it pulls them more to a sort of like delicate look because there's so much that can be
Mm.
damaged on them versus a simplistic look that feels more armored, right? And
Yep, exactly.
and someone brought up the Squadron 42 version of the Idris. I mean, CIG has said this. I really want to find this video. Or there was a video where one of the developers, I think it was Ben Curtis, but maybe it was John Crew, they specifically say that we are going to take another look at ships like the Idris and Javelin. Now, by this time, they had already reworked the exteriors, but for public consumption, they said we're going to take another look at some of these ships because of the fidelity that we got the Polaris to. We need to go back and look at some of
Mm.
those older ships. And I sort of now wonder if that, because we've heard some rumors that they want to pull back the detail in the Polaris. I think that would be a smart decision to just pull a little
Yep.
bit back on the Polaris's complex exterior, not so much for the Polaris, but to help other ships to where those ships don't have to hit that complexity level, right?
With a ship that's so large, though,
Yeah.
sometimes you can't appreciate the detailing. Like,
Yeah.
like, you're so far away from it,
Yeah.
and it's actually congesting and muddying the look that you can't appreciate it because
Yeah.
it's just too detailed. It's the same thing with your. The way I put it in a way that a lot of people don't understand is the older websites that we used to have around, where they used to be super text heavy. It was just. You couldn't take anything in, and now you go look at the the whole design of websites. They're all simple, they're clean, and they're elegant, and it's about giving you the information rather than overloading you.
Yeah.
And that's the analogy I give. CIG are essentially going through a learning process of finding out where that line is, and I think we can agree. Well, most of us would probably agree that they've crossed it a little bit there with the Polaris.
Oops, hold on one second. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it is a learning process. Remember, they have a lot more ship team members now too. You have a bunch of people learning not just the new art styles, but how far to push the art styles and how far to push them on certain size ships. Now, a lot of people too will say, well, what about the the LODs, across distance and stuff? Maybe it's just
Yeah.
detail when you get up close and much simpler when you get back. Well, obviously that's what happens with that, but you also have to be careful where the level of detail shifts are weird looking, where you go from simplicity to too detailed. It's like, where did all this come from? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah, I
been
get
the
you.
problem with the Polaris is that at distance, up
Mm.
close, the Polaris is stunning. It's at distance, the Polaris becomes a little noisy, I think is the
Mm.
best probably way to describe it.
Yep.
Um,
I'd agree with that.
yeah.
I think just to add to what you're saying there with the
Mhm.
level of detail things, they start with the high level detail one and work backwards too.
Right.
So it is the baseline.
Right.
So it's important setting the standard for all the other lower details. Like they essentially work it backwards.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I would say this, especially if there's any CIG team members that watch this at some point, ship team members, the criticism here is not that, oh, there's too much detail, it looks bad. It looks too good is almost the issue. Where it's like
Yeah.
it's like you did too good of a
Yeah.
job to where the other ships now really have to sort of compete. Now, the funny thing is I think with certain manufacturers, this can be beneficial. So things like the Ironclad and the Kraken, being that it's
Yep.
Drake and there's a lot of greebling, a lot of cladding, I think it's gonna that is gonna be really cool. As a matter of fact, they're gonna have to balance that. But on ships like RSI, or take other manufacturers like that do big ships like the Carrack and the Liberator with Anvil. When you look at concept imagery of the Liberator, the one thing that bothers me about the Liberator is it's too simple, right? And my concerns
exactly.
with the character that it's too simple now, and I see how stunning the Paladin looks. So
But you take that Paladin look and you now apply it to the Carrack and the Liberator.
God.
Yeah. Delicious.
I sincerely hope, because I've said this for a long time. I know you've heard me say this. I think I've heard you say this too. The Carrack, first off, I think in a future Star System 1.0 environment, I still think the Carrack has the potential to be one of the most important ships in the game, right? But if they could bring up its visual fidelity to match its hopefully future usefulness, it would be one of the, I think it still would be one of the most popular ships for people to own. I think it's a popular big ship for people to own now. But I think it would still, I think the Carrack has a lot of staying power. But man, if its visual fidelity could be brought up to the level of the Paladin. I got one more question here from Dillman. Says here, do you think the Polaris will receive an interior pass alongside the Perseus release? I really hope so. I really hope so.
It's already had some small little
Has had some
touches, and I
things,
don't know if you've noticed it. Yeah, I've noticed some little orange segments on the floor,
Mhm.
like just little tiny ones. So I think they've updated some of the texture tile sets,
Yeah.
and it's just carried over into the Polaris. So I would hope, I think you'd agree with this statement. No ship is really ever going to kind of be finished. They're going to be continually going back and updating them over the life of the entire game. So I'd have no doubt at some point the Polaris is going to get a bare minimum a texture makeover.
100%.
In the interior.
100%. My biggest issue with the Polaris isn't even its texture quality is good, all that stuff. My issue with the Polaris is primarily its signage is poorly placed and unreadable. And here's the thing. They were rushing to get the Polaris done. We all know that. That's no mystery. Now
they've rushed a lot of ships this year too.
Yeah. They've
like
now had
the Paladin. The Paladin has a pedal missing, for fuck's sake. Like, have you been in it?
No,
yeah. So
well, I have been in it, but I haven't looked at it really hard. So
yeah. So everyone go look, and Name and Shame posted on Twitter. They'll fix it next week if you do this. The bottom seat on the right hand side, the pedal is missing. Just gone. No pedal. Just someone deleted it or forgot to tag it, and it's just not showing up.
Yeah. So it's. I think that now they've had a year to work on the additional larger RSI interior detailing. There's C Daddy. C Daddy, the Paladin is missing one of its foot pedals. We're just putting that out there.
It's your fault. Your fault.
C Daddy's being blamed.
Yeah.
C Daddy, hope you're well. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Hope things are going well for you, buddy. We got Execute on the line here from Info Runners, talking about ships, talking about what's possibly next. Going back to that interior though, the Polaris. Look, when you walk around the Polaris does a couple things really, really well on its interior. Its texture quality is stunning. There are certain areas of the interior that I do not want them to touch because I think they are high watermarks. Engineering in the Polaris, to me, is stunning. It has probably some of the best interior lighting I've ever seen in any of the ships. But the biggest issue with the interior is simply signage, and it's also one of the easiest probably for them to solve, and probably the one they learned the most about while working on the Perseus, because I can tell you right now, from being a designer of 25 years, I've been a professional designer for 25 years, I can tell you right now that I know tons of good designers, but not all designers are good with typography and font usages, stuff like that. That is a skill in and of itself. So we could see that come into the Polaris after this Perseus work.
One of the biggest things new creators go over with me is thumbnail stuff when we do YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have seen all the thumbnails that are covered in bright yellow text and all these funky fonts. And one I'd put, and not to pick on someone, but I am going to pick on someone. Ray's guide, the font that he uses, oh my God. Change your font, sir. It is awful. Very bad, Raymond. Yeah. Or Danny, please change your font. It's awful.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I've said this before. I guess I'll say this about the Polaris interior. I do hope the Polaris gets another detail pass for signage, and they talked to us about that.
Agreed.
At IAE. The one reason I do hope they sort of get to it is because, and I'm speculating wildly here, people, I have no inside information on this whatsoever, anything like that. But I do sort of get the feeling that they're going to pause on RSI ships. I've said this many times now.
Yeah,
they're going to do I think they've done the Perseus. I think they're going to move on and focus on some of these other ships for a bit, simply for the sake of giving the artists an RSI break. You got to remember, it's not just the Polaris and the Perseus. They've done quite a few other RSI ships, and they just got done redoing the Auroras, which I'm sure we're going to hear about, right?
Real quick, I think if you go look at the Idris and look at the signage and that, I think that would be the standard for signage. But then if you put in priority, it's not a priority. So I think it's a thing that they're going to come back to when they do passes, right? And I think we can
I'd be fine with
acknowledge
that.
that.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
I would be fine with that. I mean, it is not a game breaking thing. You know what I mean? It's not a game breaking thing that the Polaris signage is a little weird. The only other thing I would like to see on the Polaris, and again, this just goes back to how good of a job the ship designers have done on some of these other ships, is the medical room probably does need a glow up. And I think CIG would probably agree with that. I don't think it needs to be crazy. It's a military ship. Doesn't have to be as beautiful as the Apollo's medical wing, but a little bit of a glow up. I actually don't think any of the other rooms, though, need any glow ups. The brig can be simple and sort of brutal. I don't think it needs much, but the medical room.
I think the area at the back where the components go, like where the gravity generator and that is, it's a bit weird.
It's a strange place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird, multi-layered, slightly out of whack staircase hybrid-y thing going on there. It needs to be simplified a little bit. I don't know how that you would do that. I'm not a professional, but it just feels out of whack to the rest of the ship.
I can tell you what I wish it had. Now, this is a much bigger rework, but you know what I wish it had back there? I actually wish it had a secondary elevator entry for the engineering room.
That makes sense.
Yeah, on a ship that big.
But, yeah, so there is an elevator there, so just make that go all the way
down. That's what I mean. All the way down.
Yeah, and maybe remove some of the staircases in there and just make it a bit simpler. One thing I want to point out while you got this image up too, my hope for the really armored look actually remains in that turret there. Yep. You can still see that turret does have that slanted stealth tank, Abrams tank head type of look. So I'm hoping that is then carried into the parts that we can't see that are off screen.
Yeah.
And that's my last final hope for this. But just the same color and all that. Obviously, they haven't put the colors in yet.
Yeah.
They're just doing it on a gray layer before they go do skins and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my hope.
Real quick, everyone, do not forget, giving away a Gray's Market SHIV and a CitizenCon goodies pack, all in one package tonight, courtesy of CIG. Thank you very much, CIG, for providing that. Just go to that Gleam link. You can enter there. We're going to give it away at the end of the stream. For those of you that haven't checked out the SHIV, it's a lot of fun. I like it a lot. So yeah, we've talked a lot about the Perseus tonight. There's sort of another big thing about the Perseus that's going to be really exciting to see for those of us that just sort of love to see how popular ships are, what the adoption rate is, how much CIG makes in a day and stuff. The Perseus sold a lot with its concept sale. We've talked about that on the funding charts and everything. I'm really excited to see how the sale goes for this ship. CIG knows it's a popular ship, so there's some question marks there, right? Are there going to be kits for it? Are there going to be optional bespoke weapon switch outs you can do for it? The ammo types.
Yep.
What kind of paints and stuff are coming for it? It's an expensive ship. They're going to lean on it for IAE. We're going to see a lot of extras with this.
Yeah.
So.
It's a lot of money to leave on the table.
A lot of money to leave on the table.
Yeah. So and I do, I know what you said about kits, and where we might disagree on some of the kits and where it would go.
Yeah.
I think the area we would agree is like what I just said, leaving money on the table. It's a really good opportunity to make a few little extras that they can sell.
Yeah.
There's a thing I've said for years, which is the only consistency about CIG is how inconsistent they are. So there's nothing to stop them from bringing kits out. There literally isn't, right? Yeah. It's just that they didn't do it with the Polaris, but maybe they just forgot because they were rushing to get it out the door. I got no idea.
Yeah.
So maybe they just had more time with this one, and they do kits. But I am thinking with what we talked about with bespoke weapons earlier on in the year, I think a lot of the ships are going to be getting weapons and beam weapons and variants and stuff like that. And you and I even talked about this one where, what if there's a kit where it all becomes beam weapons all of a sudden?
Yeah.
And
one would hope if it's supposed to be the year of beam weapons, one would hope.
Yeah.
We get one more.
Yeah. So, look, I won't be surprised if it has some, we saw the Scorpius turret, we saw the Nova tank turret.
Yep.
So they've tested the water there earlier in the year. I would not be surprised if they weren't some other, like, now I can understand it on capital ships,
Yep.
smaller ships. I think it's a little bit distasteful.
They did just add
But
those turrets, by the way. Like they added the Nova and the Scorpius turrets. They did just add those to in-game shops, by the way.
yeah, they did,
Yeah.
and they said it'll be about 2 months, and what's
Yeah.
that? So, August, September, October. So yeah, it's been about 2
Rican,
months.
thank you for the subscription, Rican. Appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, so yeah.
So yeah, so we'll be excited to see this. This will be the marquee ship for those that don't know. Yes, there's going to be other ships at IAE, but this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the marquee ship, as it should be. It's an expensive ship. It's a big ship, possibly has grown, but this will be the one to look for. There's your giveaway link right there, Tycho. Get in on that. So yeah, I do want to move though to the next ship to talk about here. Let me pull it up, and it's not necessarily a ship that we're going to talk about with this one. It's more a manufacturer, something that there's been discussions about already. Let me pull that up. Hold on one second. And that is the Gray's Market Shiv. Obviously, this here is from the original Squadron 42 preview. It's the ship that, if you've ever heard like the little neon hoses on it, this essentially is the Shiv. Now, I think we got one that had some slight changes made to it, like the relays and stuff put into it. But Gray's Market, right? This new manufacturer that has now come to the verse that some love, some hate. Let me ask you this, Execute. Where do you sit on Gray's Market, just as a manufacturer, not necessarily from the Shiv standpoint, but just as a manufacturer? Where do you kind of sit with it?
It's a really interesting because like the whole Drake versus Origin thing, there's going to be a lot of people that don't like the look, and
Yeah.
I've talked to multiple people, and I can tell you there are people that are really excited for this manufacturer,
Yeah.
and there are people that can't stand it, right?
Yeah.
But as Space Tomato has said, there's got to be things in this game that you hate for everybody to love it.
Sure.
And when you kind of go through it, like I don't really kind of hate these guys or dislike these guys, but it's the prospect of what they can give you. And you and I have gone back and looked at the Flappy Bird, and now we're looking at that with completely new eyes. And I start looking at other ships out there, like how can I combine hulls and wings and engines and get to these crazy conceptual ideas? And you got to look at from from a CIG perspective, because it's essentially kit bashing. And I did talk to Elliot about this on stream last week when he was on. That absolutely speeds up development time. But also, this entire manufacturer, if you think about it, and I think you'd agree with me on this one, Grim, this allows almost unlimited onboarding tasks.
Yeah.
Unlimited. Because you can just do everything through this manufacturer.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, going back to the Drake Flappy Bird, which, I can bring up an image of that, and that's in my Gray's Market folder here. Again, we don't know if this is Gray's Market, but the funny thing is,
I would start to bet money on it, Grim.
Yeah.
It is like, how much have you and I gone back on? But they don't do that, and they don't do that. But that's a freelance engine, and that's a Drake thing. Like, it's just. It's got so many different manufacturer things on it. It don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now,
by the way, Lednor,
it makes
bodybuilder,
complete sense.
Righteous, Old Man, Victor, thank you for those follows. Appreciate you. Really appreciate it. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. You're right in that we are looking at it in with new eyes, since we know about the Gray's Market. But the funny thing is, it's not really new eyes, because one of the very first things we said about this ship was that, man, it looks like it's got different parts and pieces on it. So for some of us, it feels a little bit more just like a confirmation of our original thinking about this ship. I know that you brought up these little winglets here that seem very out of place on a Drake, and I fully admit they do seem very out of place on a Drake ship.
The round curve like turret thing under the big wing, like a big spherical, like they don't do round shapes really on Drake. They're very angular. So
there's something too that I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, because this came up with someone else, and there was a discussion about, it was on, maybe it was on Discord or maybe it was on someone else's Discord, but someone said, well, oh, it's going
Mm,
to be boring if it's another Grays Market ship that's just using a lot of Drake parts. But when I got to think about it, I was like, well,
mm.
from a lore perspective, it would make sense that they're using a lot of Drake parts, because Drake ships are probably easy to get and tear apart. You know what I mean?
This is
With maybe
this is
one or
the
two
part that
pieces of exotic gear added to them. You know what I mean?
let's just put the real, elephant in the room out there.
Yeah.
An Origin ship that's apart and merged with a Drake ship, because it's gonna happen.
It's crazy.
You know it's gonna happen. They're gonna do it
Yeah.
just because they can. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen, Origin owners. I'm sorry, but at some point you're gonna see the mutated, what do you call that? The zombie sewn together. What was it? Frankenstein. You're gonna see the Frankenstein. They're gonna do it.
But I hope CIG takes that stance if they go further with the Grays Market stuff, which I think they will. And I'm going to bring up real quick. I'll bring the Flappy Bird back up in a second, but I wanted to bring up this other image here. This is the other Grays or other ship from Squadron 42 that we've heard. I got a better image in there, standby, that we've heard about, and we've seen images of, and this is the one that looks a little bit of a cross between like a Hornet and a Mustang, and there's some other stuff going on there. Definitely more like, if the SHIV is the quote unquote heavy fighter, medium heavy fighter, this looks more like the small
Light fighter,
or the light fighter. Sorry, the light fighter.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a Hornet, a Mustang, and I wish you had the video, because when you look at it from behind, I think it was a Hawk or something like that, the Hawk engines or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember, but there was three of them. I do know there was three of them.
Here's what I would say though about the Grays Market stuff, and what I hope CIG does moving forward with these. And this is this is open to a little bit of subjective.
That's what it was.
Oh, was it the
Sorry,
buck?
Kappa? Yeah, it was the buck. Thank you, but thank you, Kappa. Appreciate that.
So this is what I would say about that, which is, I hope they try to make it make sense a little bit. So for me with the SHIV, I think one of the things I really like about the SHIV is that when they were, chopping this ship together, using the Cutlass black hull, the main hull, fuselage, made sense to me from a lore perspective, because that was probably the easiest like starting point for someone chopping ships together. And then where you got creative was more things like, oh, the engines, okay, like, oh, the Drake body is perfectly fine for what I need to do, but man, I want to get more performance out of it, so I'm going to put these like Valkyrie engines on it, right? And these Freeland or these MISC engines or whatever. So I do hope moving forward, CIG, if they do any of the Grays Market stuff, they will consider it like that, where it's not just taking random pieces and throwing them together, but trying to give it a little bit of like sense about why you would chop certain parts of the ship together like that. You know what I mean? So going back to our Flappy Bird concept here, what would the purpose of this be, right? Like, why would you take parts and pieces of this and make it into this like Frankenstein of a ship? I just hope there's some rhyme and reason behind it, and not just like, oh, we borrowed the wings from this, the landing gear from this.
I think it's necessity.
Yeah.
I think if you are outside the UAE and you're inside NICS, you take what you've got and you use it. And I'll tell you an analogy, right? Here in Australia, before the internet came along, per capita, Australians were considered the best inventors in the world. Why is that? Because we were at the end of the supply chain, right? So it had to come from America, or it had to come from Asia, or it had to come to Europe, and we are so far from everyone else. It takes a minimum of I think it's 8 hours to get to kind of another major Western or large place. Like, we are very remote compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
And so I remember like some really weird ass inventions. Like, this guy invented a way to completely skin pineapples. And if you've seen a pineapple, that's not an easy thing to peel. Yeah. It's not like an apple or an orange. Like and he invented a whole machine that did that. And he made, he's dead now, but he became like a millionaire. So the point I'm trying to get to is, in NICS, they would be in the same boat. They would between the Vandal, they're between the UAE. They need to make shit. He's doing it.
Well, and that's what I mean, is sort of like have things make sense. So if this manufacturer is in NICS, right, and he's making
Yeah.
you would assume that he's making ships or putting those or chopping these ships together to really have an advantage, especially in that system where there's Vandal
Yeah.
raids and stuff like that. So, for example, I would want a ship because I was watching your Shiv's buyer's guide with Pops
Mhm.
and Algrid, and I agreed with a lot of
Mhm.
what was being said there. But one of the things I think Pops brought up, or you brought up, someone brought up, was that it has like the Shiv is pretty fast, like faster than
Yep.
the Cuddy.
Yep.
And to me, like, again, this is just lore stuff, but it would make sense that you would want a
ac-
fast ship in a Vandal raid type environment.
Actually, it's slow. It's actually slower than the Cutlass Black. It's
Oh,
more
is it? Okay.
maneuverable.
More
Yeah, so
maneuverable.
it
Okay.
has more engines, but
Right.
they're not as powerful as the two big ones on the Cutlass. So
Right.
that it's slightly slower than a Cutlass, but way more
Right.
maneuverable.
But you know
Yeah.
what I mean, right? Like they would
Yeah,
put a
okay, yeah.
ship together that is strong in that system, that has a purpose there, right? So, for
Yeah.
example, you brought up armor a lot. If it's a system where a lot of Vandal raids are going on, I would expect them
Yep.
to rat rod a ship together that can take an ass whooping. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or maybe that has a higher resistance to Vandal weapons or
Mm.
whatever they're using. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of places CIG could go with it. I really think it's cool. To me, it's different, but in the same kind of context as Cousin Crows. And I honestly think they could do Cousin Crows as a manufacturer as well, but it's different. It'd be different than Grays, where it's just chopped together pieces. Cousin Crows, I think, is where CIG could take ships like, let's just say the 600i for just as an example, or let's go with a smaller ship. Take take a ship like the 400i. Like, it'd be interesting to see a Cousin Crows variant of the 400i, something that Origin would never do, but is unique and interesting. You know what I mean? So CIG
Yeah.
has a lot of places where they could get creative with this, and I would love to see that. I mean, one of the weird things you brought up on the Shiv show was the paint job,
Mhm.
and I fully agreed with you. The Blossom one is my favorite, not because I think it's like I love it from an art perspective. I just love how like bold and different CIG was being. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I
That's the same
think
reason I liked it.
I think the Gray's Market, Cousin Crows, maybe there's going to be one in Pyro. To me, those
Mm.
manufacturers give CIG a reason to color outside the lines
Yep.
that they have to color in for certain manufacturers. They've done such a good job of establishing all the manufacturers now that in some ways
Mhm.
it can, I imagine for them, it could be a little tricky because they have to make sure ships feel like a Crusader ship or feel like a Drake ship or feel like a, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
allows them with the skins too. Like that skin, in a way, tells a story. Like
yeah,
it really does.
it does. Yeah.
Like how it ties in with Levski and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What I was trying to say before with the pineapple thing. Sorry,
Yeah.
I went a weird place there. But necessity is the mother of invention,
Yeah.
and I think that's what they're trying to show here is that their ships feel a little bit more extreme. So that is a heavy fighter, but it's like more of a glass cannon than the Hurricane.
Mhm.
But they've built it to do a very specific thing. So
Yeah.
I would kind of hope that more of their ships are more extreme than others. Like they're more outliers than the standard ships within the regular pipeline. They're built to do really specific roles.
And I think there's some low hanging fruit for CIG to have fun with that. Like, for example,
Agreed.
And again, going back to the Cousin Crows thing, if CIG just wants a place to be creative and have a little fun, like I could totally see Cousin Crows taking the Herald, stripping all the scanning shit off, and making it like a drag racer. You know what I mean? Where they maybe
100%.
put some additional wings on or whatever. Either way, they make it into sort of what we all call it sometimes, the like drag race shit. So again, I think those things are really fun, exciting, and as much as I love the manufacturers and love Rally behind them, I think that's what's exciting me so much about the Grays Market thing again, and Cousin Crows and stuff like that, is that there are possibilities, you know what I mean, for them to be a little different. And it's much different than just coming up with a new manufacturer like Mirai, where they came up with Mirai. Mirai's interesting, but it's still super narrow to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think it'll be the last one we see either, because one of the other things we talked about with Grays is obviously bringing in the Vandal stuff, because that's what's in that system. So bring that in. But what happens when we move around and then we've got a star system over near the Xi'an, and all of a sudden you get a Xi'an human hybrid? It's actually an alien that's doing it. So it's Chopachua's market or whatever you want to call it. Do you know what I mean? Whatever his name is, I'm making.
Well,
What was that thing you said before? Chuppa Gandhi or whatever? What the hell was that
chupacabra.
mythical creature?
Chupacabra.
Yeah, no, I was trying to copy you, but I failed. Yeah, I failed. Something like that, right? But you get my point, right?
Yeah.
You could even have one that's like half Zion, half Banu. There was some human guy that lives halfway between the two, and he likes them both. So he chops and changes theirs to go.
Or we're talking about Nick's over here. Is there a possibility that Gray's Market couldn't take some parts and pieces off of a Vandal ship that they've captured? I don't know.
We've talked about that. We did actually talk about it in the SHIV video, but cool. We've talked about other things. I think it's totally a thing, you know, and then you take it ships. What about ground vehicles?
Yeah.
What about Titan suits? What about like it's essentially just made it like it's just taken it to a different place.
Yeah.
Like it's not like doubled all the ships that are there or anything, but it's just expanded what they can do and the creative freedom that I reckon that CIG is feeling with having this manufacturer would be amazing. Yeah. And I know what I mean by creative, because people get a bit stagnated when you have to fall. It's like what you're saying about, I think they're kind of done with RSI ships. I agree, because they've done so many of them now. They want to move on and stretch their wings a little bit, and before they come back to RSI. And I'm going to tell you right now, you would agree with this. Them taking a break and coming back to RSI will be even better next time they come back. The time when you take the time away and you walk back into the like if you're ever stuck on doing an art piece or anything like that, you take some time away and you walk back in and you just go, what the fuck was I thinking? Holy shit. It becomes so obvious to you what you've done wrong.
Yeah, you come at it with fresh eyes, absolutely. And it's a great way. I use this a lot with my artists, you know, with visual effects for films and stuff like that. When we're done with a project, and I use two different terms sometimes. Our company term is we do a post-mortem on it, right? But essentially what I tell my artists is let's self-audit. Let's look at what we did.
Yep.
Let's admit what could be done better and revise it for next time, take those lessons. So sort of self-auditing, and I hate to say it, but you can't do that in the midst of it. You have to do it after, and it has to be a little bit after, like some time has to be there.
And that's also the benefit of working in a team. Someone else will see something wrong that you don't see. And I think the other thing is learning to take criticism, because one of the things that I really struggled with when I worked in the industry, and I got in a lot of trouble for this. I remember one girl I did it to. She was like she was a new hire. I was walking around the office looking at other people's work, and I just saw her work, and I went, that's shit, and walked off.
Yep.
Right. And so she was new. She'd never worked anywhere before, and apparently she just like started bawling down and crying with tears. Anyway, I had go forward a couple of hours to come around the office that I was a complete asshole and all this type of shit. I took her aside into my office, sat her down, and I literally said what I was saying. And you got to remember, I have a condition, so I'm sorry, I was cold. But what I was actually saying to you, in no uncertain terms, is this is perfect if you just fix these three things. Mm-hmm. I just said it the wrong way. And I said, so that's on me, and I apologize. Anyway, she went on to become one of the best artists we've ever had. Yeah. And she would always come back to me because I didn't bullshit her.
Yeah.
I just told her what was wrong with it. And she'd come back and ask, what's wrong with this? And I'd just go, that and that.
Yeah. Well,
and then she'd go fix it. And
critiquing one's art, it's one of the things that you learn in art school, and throughout your career as an artist, you have to hone and work on, is taking criticism and understanding criticism and then getting positive traction out of it. So
we're all used to each other praising ourselves, but if I tell you everything that's right with a project,
sure,
you don't learn anything. But if I just go fix this, this, and this, you know what is wrong.
Yeah. But
it doesn't feel as good. So what I had to learn essentially, right? Because this is a part of my condition, was I had to learn give praise and criticism, right? And that was on me, right? So that's what I learned that day. But the point I'm trying to get at is, you need to be able to hear negativity and not see it as a reflection on you. That's that person actually trying to help you. Yeah. And but by the same token, what we do at Infrunners, and I know you do it here as well, is you just don't go, that's stupid or that's dumb. You've actually got to give the proper critique on how to fix it, or a suggestion, because that's the only way they learn and improve. And I guarantee you that's how it would be at CIG. They would be sitting around the table and saying, yeah, dude, there's something off about this, or this doesn't work. What about this, or this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go back to this image here real quick. We're going into IAE. We know the Perseus is coming. That's a easy bet. Very much like the Paladin. We kind of know it's a known quantity. there's a lot of ships on the table that could come. We talked about the Flappy Bird. We talked about the Consolidated Outland medium ship. Those
Mhm.
ships were never guaranteed this year. They were just going into production
Yep.
this year.
Yep. I've had
But
many arguments with people over that. Yep.
with the SHIV coming, a Squadron 42 asset updated to go into the PU essentially with some small updates like relays and stuff like that. By the way, thank you everyone for the
Mhm.
follows. Get some more follows. Prince, White Denim, Pumpkin, thank you very much.
Mhm.
What's the likelihood of this Squadron 42 shipjacker ship landing? Because to me, this one is super low hanging fruit for them to do and a quick, easy
Mm.
follow up to a Gray's Market ship. You know
So
what
I
I mean?
don't, but based on what I've looked at, there's no room in the monthly report for it to exist.
Okay.
And it's based on its size essentially.
Mhm.
And I would also put this back to you. What sounds more impressive? We only kind of know that there's one ship left without including the
Because this is about Mustang
'cause-
size, right? That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting.
We can't officially include the Flappy Bird because we don't know, but we can include this because it was in the same video, right?
Yep.
So what sounds better to you? Releasing this at AIE or holding off and releasing this at DefenseCon?
Well, if this is Gray's Market, I would say IAE. But if the Flappy Bird, for example, is a pure Drake ship, which there's still a possibility that it could be,
Mhm.
then DefenseCon.
No, I meant releasing this Mustang hybrid thing that's on the screen.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is Gray's Market joining Drake
Oh,
and selling shit
joining
at
DefenseCon.
DefenseCon.
Well,
That's what I meant.
yeah. I mean, this was brought up in one of my streams just recently, and I think I talked to you
Yeah, I
about it
heard.
too. Was
Yep.
like,
Yep.
100%. I think DefenseCon should be opened up to other non-UEE accepted manufacturers for
Yep.
sure. I think that would be
Yep.
cool because I think it would be a little bit like Drake trying to drive that screwdriver a little bit more,
Yep. Yep.
which I think would be great.
And we talked about the whole lore behind it, and eventually it becomes so big and awesome that Aegis and that have to join in, and the Invictus disappears and it just comes to DefenseCon.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be funny as 10 years from now.
I absolutely love that, and I could even see them doing things where like DefenseCon gets extended. It goes from 2-day event to a 4-day event or whatever. And look, I don't think CIG would shy away from additional monetization event time. You know what I mean? Having some of these events are already stretched out as much as CIG can stretch them.
Well,
an extra couple days for more sales, I think could be good.
One thing that came up that could be done is they moved DefenseCon. So essentially, if you think about it, we essentially have two sales at the moment. You have AIE and Invictus, where the other two gaps then are 3 months apart. So you could have one in like say August and one in like January.
Yeah.
So January might not be easy to do because the holidays and stuff that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But that fully leaves August open. What if you move DefenseCon to August?
Yeah. Well, I'd like that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, it becomes its own event. They start to pull in other manufacturers as well, and it also leaves a lot of the industry stuff. Because the problem with Invictus is it's just all military.
Yeah.
There's no outsider stuff. So it'd be kind of cool if you could pull those in.
And to some degree, I don't want them to muddy up Invictus too much. I do like that it's very focused on the military. Like that's what it's about. You know what I mean? And it's something kind of cool about it. And I do think there's more time in the year now. They could spread some of these events out. I think that'd be pretty cool. One quick note about the Flappy Bird real quick. We're not going to spend too much time on this. There's a lot of unknowns on both Infrarunner shows, on my shows. We've talked about this ship to death. I know Trispone has done whole speculations on this, but the only thing I would say about this ship, and I'll be honest with you, right now I'm about 80% that this is a Gray's Market ship, 20% that's a Drake ship. And before I was 100% Drake all the way with this one. The only thing though that's given me a little second guessing that this still could be a straight up Drake ship is that much like with the Pioneer, we know they're working on the medium Consolidated Outland ship. Well, they're also working on quite a few giant, big-ass Drake ships, right? The Ironclad Assault, and the Kraken. It's not out of line for another Drake ship or two to come down the
Agreed.
pipeline. Now, I guess you could
Mhm.
include the Golem maybe into that, but I don't really
Mhm.
because it was earlier in the year and really just borrows parts. So for me,
Mhm.
though, there's much like we got the Meteor and stuff like that, we still could get a Drake ship or two as they're
Agreed.
working on this.
Agree. Agree
So,
completely. Speculation only ever takes you far so far, and you
yeah,
can't limit certain things out either.
yeah,
You've got to just narrow the field and work within that field the best you
yeah.
can. And you know, there's
You
things for
know,
me that rule out Drake, but there are things that rule in Drake, obviously.
yeah.
So it's just you got to
Dillman
go by
says,
feel.
Dillman says, asks a question, says, how do you think the design team will balance a ship's identity with so many assets being reused? I'm worried ships will lose their
Mm.
personality and become same ship, different functionality.
Yeah,
Well,
that's interesting. But again, look at the Shiv. Look at all the exterior detailing of the pipework on the outside of that to
yeah,
make it really
yeah,
differentiate from the Cutlass. And if you go back
yeah,
to that image you had of the Shiv with the Cutlass behind it,
yeah.
you can see just straight away it's not the same.
No,
It's
it's
not the
pretty
same.
radical changes. And
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of like the ships being reused with the same assets, there's a couple things. One, a lot of these ships do have pretty radically different exteriors a lot of the times, variants aside,
Mm,
of course. So even take a ship like the Polaris and Perseus. Yes, they're both triangular shaped ships, but they're pretty damn different. Their bridges are in different areas. The ships have wildly different
mm,
setups and layouts. And those exterior shapes are going to
mm,
facilitate wildly different internal layouts, right? So rooms,
mm.
panels, and stuff like that may be reused, but there's still going to be a lot
Yeah.
of like custom parts and pieces. Um,
It's a really
and
interesting way of looking at it.
yeah,
How you
and
I don't know if you just said
yeah,
that, but like it's essentially like taking the analogy of how they build the bigger ships and applying it to smaller
hmm
ships, but then crossing manufacturers as well. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
never thought of it like that until you said it that way. Yeah.
and then you have to balance the other side of this thing, right? For years, right? For years, it was complained about how long it was taking to tackle the backlog. Are we ever going to see these big monster ships, right? The big, large subcaps and caps.
Mm,
We ever going to see those? Uh, we're only going to see those if CIG can find efficiencies, right? From a
mm,
lore perspective, it makes sense for a manufacturer to reuse a lot of parts and pieces. You are right. It will be on CIG to still make those ships feel special in various ways, whether it's through armament,
yeah.
through exterior looks, through minor details on the interior.
Fun-
A good
function
example to
and
that would be for me would be the engineering section of the Polaris again. The That's a special place that I don't think they're
mm,
reusing for like the Perseus or anything. You know what I mean? Like it's a special
yeah,
place in
yeah.
the Perseus that isn't in any other RSI ship. So there's probably going to be little areas like that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say it's also function as well. Like, do you take a
Yeah.
mining ship and then all of a sudden convert all the turrets so that they attack? Do you take the one I proposed to Algrid and he got mortified when I said this was you take the hammerhead and you turn it into a mining ship or a salvage ship.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? Like you change all the hammerhead, all the turrets to be like
Sure.
strippers and stuff. That could be amazing to see too, like just all the beams working and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
you start to think very quickly, like how can you take something? Remember when the Fury dropped and everyone talked about having the Starfarer and that the Fury was on the back
Yeah.
and they were like little turrets and stuff. That could be a thing that
Sure.
Grey does. Totally makes sense all of a sudden.
Sure. So, going back to your question, it's up to CIG to keep them interesting and make the ship something we want to buy, even if it does reuse some
Mm,
things. And here's what I'll say: you only have to look at the funding chart and look at the ships they've been pushing through, and
mm,
whether you think they've been doing good or bad, all you really need to do is look at the funding chart. They're doing gangbusters. So they're
yeah.
doing something right, right? That they are keeping the interest up. I think we could all agree on that. Even if someone like
Mm,
if anyone in chat, let's say you are very disappointed with the ships they've released in the past 18 months or whatever, that's fine. That's
mm,
valid, totally valid. But when you take a step back, just look at the funding as a whole. They're doing something right. Right. And I know it's not all ships, there's gameplay and other factors that have generated those funds, but they're from just a straight fundraising standpoint, they're doing something right. So I don't see any drastic changes. What I just see are efficiencies being focused on. When they can focus on those efficiencies, right? When they don't have to redesign the pilot seat for every single RSI ship they do, remember, that's time that they can go into those special areas and they can make them extra special. What we would need to be concerned about is if CIG ever got to a place where they had all the parts and pieces from the kits to use, but then also didn't put any effort into the special areas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get you.
So that's Gray's Market. Again, pretty excited about it. We could see this ship from Gray's Market come. I don't know. I think it could be low-hanging fruit for them to release, and then sort of we like got the collection, you know what I mean, of known Gray's Market ships possibly. So that seems like a mostly easy win. The next thing I wanted to go, just for the sake of time. Yeah,
Can I just add, at the moment, I'm trying to do the math on it, but we're more than 30 million in front of where we were last year. Like, I'm going to link you this so you can bring it up, because I think it's worth tracking this as we go. I'm just sending you the link now.
Okay.
But look at October just last year, or the last 4. If you look at the last 3 years, they're all roughly in the same place. Look how far October is now in front. It's literally in December.
Yeah. And
That's nuts.
You can see the comparison here. It's wild. This year is going to do a full collapse of this chart because this bar is going to go so much far to the right, you know?
Yeah. We were expecting back before the start of October, we hit 96 million before October, and we're going into the biggest thing of the year. We think we fully could potentially, like, I basically asked some of the AIs, and I used the 3 previous years, and I said, where do you think that this will fall out based on the previous 3 years? And you could basically do it, and they said that it was 149 million. And I don't think that it takes into account the other ships, right? So it's obviously ramping up. So I think we're going to hit 150 million. I really, really do.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
we're already at 106.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And someone in chat says, do I think that based off the funding chart, would CIG hit 1.5 billion before 1.0? Yeah, for sure. If 1.0 is minimum 3 years away, let's just say that, let's be on some hopium for a minute. Let's say it's 3 years away. 3 years to get another 600 million. Yeah, I could see them doing that. If they don't, they'd have to do 2 things that are very important. They'd have to keep delivering on what they've been doing, and also pass milestones. You know what I mean? They'd have to keep clearing milestones. And I mean feature milestones. I do think that's important. You know, so real quick, I do want to go on to a couple remaining ships I want to talk about real quick. Not going to spend a lot of time on this one. We've talked a lot about it. Go ahead.
I was going to ask real quick, are we essentially talking about ships that we think are coming at AIE? Is that essentially what we're doing
known
here?
ships that could be coming next. You know what I mean? These are ships that we've heard about. Obviously, we've got ships on that have been talked about in the monthly reports, in production, variants, and this, that, and the other. Sort of just taking a new stock on what is sort of left in the known ships that could possibly come at IAE. And if they don't come at IAE, there's probably one more chance in December for some of these ships to hit, and then it's definitely a 2026 ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've essentially got a list in front of me that I've had for the last couple of weeks of the ships that I'm thinking that's coming at AIE. And I know just tell me if this is on your list. Sure. The RSI Salvager.
Yeah, so the RSI Salvager was going to be another one I brought up. Yep, RSI Salvager. That's a definite possibility. I still personally don't totally understand the ship, but yeah.
Let's go through your list, because I'm putting you off. You had it in order. Let's follow your order. And
I really don't have super big order, so I think if you want to bring something up, that's fine. RSI Salvager for sure. I think there's a possibility there. Again, it makes sense. But before the salvage changes recently, that ship made no sense to me. Not that we don't need it, but that we don't need it now. There was no reason to have it now. But now with the salvage changes, it makes sense.
I don't think it's that ship specifically. I think it's the fact that the Intrepid has variants, but I think their variants don't have their gameplay ready.
Right.
I cannot look at the Intrepid and not see a bounty hunting variant because of the way those two cargo pods come down, and they're perfectly, they look like they're designed for stretchers to go in.
Yeah.
You know, they go up and then they've got essentially like coffin lid like opening doors on them, and also on the back of the Intrepid it almost looks like it's got a track like a Scorpius or a Paladin.
Yeah.
You have a look, if you take some of the little panels off, it looks like they've just put things in a track. I can't unsee it, so I think there might be a bounty hunting variant in there or a combat variant of some description. But
Yeah. Well, so going back to the RSI Salvager, though, I with the changes to salvage, specifically the changes surrounding what each salvage ship is best at, right? With the reclaimer being quantity over quality, the vulture being the baseline, and this and that and the other, and also the different forms of salvage in terms of powder and this and that.
And there's no ship that can currently do powder.
Exactly. I could see this being that. So in that context, this ship makes sense. I do think we are overrepresented with small salvage ships if this comes out. Like them, I think we're good there for a while. They need to sort of move on to what the next level that is, personally.
Yeah, especially with the way the Fortune came out, and the Fortune didn't sell very well either because it came out at the same price as the Vulture. I think if they'd made it a little more expensive, people would have upgraded it to try it, but nobody wanted to apply new money to when they had a ship that was essentially better than it.
I'll be honest with you. I think the Vulture's I think the Fortune's problem is it was the second salvage ship using an existing hull, so it just didn't seem that exciting next to like if the Fortune had been the first salvage ship and it had been based off the Prospector and it was just kind of felt like a different sort of Prospector, but then the Vulture came along, I think the Vulture would have sold incredibly well because it was a wholly new form factor. I think it just had it just didn't have a lot of sparkle to it. You know what I mean?
I think it's all the onboarding tasks that has essentially taught them about Grey's Market. That's what it feels like.
That's a great
It feels
point.
like
That's a great point.
Grey's Market has come out of things of like they needed to be able to teach people how to do shit. How do we make these ships exciting? Because guess what? That Fortune sucks balls. How do we make that more interesting? Oh, wouldn't it have been really cool if we could have made it a jump? Imagine if you took the Fortune and reworked that to be a Grey's Market all of a sudden. Doesn't that sound more appealing?
Sure.
Like straight away, my brain starts racing with how you could connect different pieces to it and make it more interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like I also think it's a more exciting way of doing manufacturer crossovers versus like, oh, we're, Crusader's going to partner with Origin for this special ship. Like even that feels a little kind of like stuffy compared to like a Grey's Market or a Cousin Crow sort of thing where they can get a little wild with it. Right.
Well,
I think RSI mini salvager could of course come at IAE, especially with the salvage changes. It would make a lot of sense. I think this one has a high likelihood of being one of the ships at IAE personally, especially for the low dollar figure.
The name I'm hoping for, right? Because you know how I like to make up names for these, but the name I'm hoping for, and this is based again, I ran it through AI and stuff, is RSI name a lot of their ships based on star or space type things, and usually they've been named on star constellations. The Meteor obviously was not named on one. The Mantis was a modified version of a star constellation. I can't remember what it was. It was an insect, and they changed it to be the Mantis. But what I'm hoping that they call this one is the Lyra. The Lyra is a star constellation that's it's like a harp. And if you think about strumming the strings of a harp, it's almost like collecting the powder out of the. You see where I'm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Me doing spirit fingers, but that's what I'm doing. So that's kind of how I visualize it, and I know that's what I kind of hope they're going to call it, but I'm probably absolutely wrong.
Yeah, there's a couple other when I was looking it up. I put it down in my notes here. Let me find it. So there's Auriga, which is a constellation associated with a myth about destruction. There was and that is Auriga. There was also Draco, which is the dragon, which is it says here in some religious texts.
How do you spell
it's
this one?
Auriga. There
I'll
was
look that up later. Yeah,
also,
thank you.
yeah, there's also a couple other names here. There's also like the Corvus, which I don't know if that was a constellation.
Yeah, I saw that
Yeah,
before.
there's a
Yeah, I
couple
saw that
others.
one already.
The
Yeah,
dragon is supposed to be, so Draco is supposed to be like
yeah.
like close
I,
to, it's you know, put up with destruction. There's like a parallel there. So I don't know.
They like lots of Roman and Greek things too. So if you
Yep.
can find anything that's a star constellation that's Roman or Greek, and the Lyra was like I think it was a Roman or Greek harp.
Yeah.
So that's why I caught onto that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've got no idea what they're going to call it. No one ever does. We never get these right. But
Yeah, Papa Juggernaut in chat's got the spelling right there. Auriga. Yeah. So
yeah, I've got a feeling that they bring out that ship and it's called the Flappy Bird. I will lose my shit. It would be hilariously funny.
if it's
I
the
would,
Grays
I would
Market
never
Flappy Bird,
live
it'd
it
be great.
down. I would that everyone would blame me and it'd be hilarious. But I would hate myself for thinking that up. But yeah.
Let's talk real quick about the consolidated Outland median ship. We've again another ship
Yeah.
we've speculated on heavily. I don't think we need to deep dive it or anything here. All that I think we could say is that I'm personally not expecting this ship at IAE, and here's the reason why.
Yep.
And it's going to go into the next ship or the next thing I want to talk about too. And that is, I do think this ship is industrial focused and specifically new industrial. So focusing on crafting or base building. I think it has a tie-in there, even if not, it doesn't directly do those things. I think it does have a tie-in. And based off what we've seen at CitizenCon, unless CIG surprised us with something new here at IAE, I just didn't get any indication that like yes, some minimal crafting's coming into the game in the form of FPS weapons and stuff, but it still felt like none of that stuff was coming anytime soon, like Q1, Q2.
Yeah.
If we do get it next year, it's gonna be late next year. So I don't think any sort of industrial minded ships that tie into new industrial gameplay are on the cards for IAE. Because remember, it's not gonna be a concept ship, it's gonna be a straight to flyable ship. So that's my thinking there.
It sounds like you and I are on the same page because my process was there was 4 unannounced ships on the roadmap, and then I realized the Stinger has essentially been announced years ago.
Yeah.
So I took the Stinger out from those 4 announced, and then basically that means that I had one space left, right? Because the RSI Salvager I think is one of them. Then I had the Shiv, and then I had the Hermes. Right, we'll talk about the Hermes in a bit, but I think they've already told us the one that's coming. By the way, when they did the SCL in September, they mentioned things about the Perseus, the number of ships coming in October. The other thing is they mentioned 2 ships in October, and we got 3. The other thing is they said one of them has a bespoke weapon. Which one has the bespoke weapon of those 3? Because you've got the Paladin. The Shiv technically has the new guns on it, so I guess it's got to be the Shiv. But they're not bespoke. So none of those weapons are bespoke.
Yeah.
Unless really I guess no, wait, the Stinger's got the size 5.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. All right. So it's got to be the Stinger, right? But the point is, he said 2, and then 3 came. So things have changed in just that 1 month, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that Ben said that stuck with me that I can't get rid of is he mentioned an orange, large salvager, right? And we can sit here and argue like we have before between Argo and Sinu, but I think that one of the 2 ships are coming is either this medium in front of you, right? Or the large orange salvager, which I think would also be Sinu, right? And that's what I think's left. It's either this or that.
Yeah. And this, by the way, everyone is not a large ship. This is a medium at best.
Yeah. So I think, and then the Hermes, I think the Hermes, because it's also technically a large, I think that's what's coming in December.
Yeah, I could see that.
Which would be kind of about when I'd expect that patch to come out. Yeah. If it is a data runner, that's kind of when I would be expecting it, the very last patch of the year. But yeah.
And going back to this one, whenever I do say things like, well, I don't think an industrial ship that ties into new industrial gameplay is coming, people say, oh, well, it could be a cargo version. The only reason I doubt that is because that would really not make sense when we have the consolidated Outland Nomad. It would literally play in the same, it'd be like a duplicate of the Nomad and then just a different form factor. So it would be really odd for another medium consolidated Outland cargo ship. It's not that they couldn't do it, it'd just be bizarre. You know what I mean? When there's plenty of other interesting options. But again, going back to the discussion we had on Drake, we're going to get consolidated Outland ships. We probably won't get just even the one. If they're building a ship as big as the Pioneer, then I would expect a couple of consolidated outland ships,
Agreed.
coming to us.
Agreed.
The last thing I want to talk about, for the sake of time, I want to talk briefly
Yep.
about this thing. Actually, let me bring it over here. This ground vehicle, obviously built on the Anvil. Is this still called the Atlas platform?
Well, yes. Well, this
Yeah,
is the thing I want to ask though. Do you consider this announced because it's a part of the Atlas platform? Because when I kind of do
yeah,
in a way because we know something about it. So this is why I ruled it out of the 4 unannounced.
yeah. Um, yes, I would consider this one announced technically because it's a known. Well, God, I don't know. That's a great question.
Mm.
That's
And
that's
it's
a
the
great
same thing
question.
with the Sinu medium because it's not been announced, but it's been shown. So we know it's coming. So it's kind of been announced. So this is the where is that line of announced and
Yeah,
knowing? You know
yeah.
what I mean? So it's a tough
So,
one.
um, obviously, when most people see this, they, at least from in the StarJump Discord, other Discords I've been in, other conversations I've had with other people that DM me and want to talk about some of these silhouettes.
Mm.
The main thing I hear about this, oh, it's that base building ground vehicle. And I want to take a little step back on that. I don't think that's what it is, but I want to take a little bit of a step back and show the reasoning of why I don't think that is. And the reason I don't think that it is let's go back to the original sitcom presentation, which again, things have changed wildly on, but there is some sense behind what's going on here. So they showed us that there was going to be some sort of hover cart thing that builds bases. Okay. This was the sort of
Yep.
original design they had for us, probably some early white box thing. And obviously, we know they've gone a different direction. They've showed us the different direction. It looks like a big coffin you're pushing around now, the new one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But the important thing to this was not what it looked like, it was that it could be carried in anything. Okay, CIG even said so in the CitizenCon presentation, was about that you could put the hover cart in some of the smallest of ships, right? So that's the plan behind it. Now, then the next thing they showed was the next step up. So that was small. The next one was the medium base builder, which you're seeing here. Okay, this was the Atlas platform with the big trailer. Again, technology we haven't seen in the game yet, the ability to pull trailer. And this is what that looked like. You can even see the large tower here, very much like the hover cart they talked to us about that elevates the tower for the drones for the camera for the drones. The same exact thing here. CIG also showed us this in color and concept imagery around base building in
Yep.
this image, right? So we saw it
Yep.
coming out of the back of a Hercules C2.
Yep.
In my inspecting of the model, it looks very rough, very white boxy, kind of simple type stuff. But the important thing about this image I wanted to point out is not the base building vehicle itself, it's the vehicle it's being carried in, right?
Agreed.
And
Yep. Agreed.
here's the problem. And this is why CIG made the change. And I know you know this execute, just for those in chat that maybe have not heard this diatribe from me. I think CIG looks at base building. Actually, I've heard this from developers, looks at base building as a core gameplay loop in Star Citizen. One of the main things you are doing in the game, right? If you separated 3 different things out, this would definitely be one of the main things you're doing in Star Citizen 1.0. They did not want to lock behind medium base building. Remember the size, medium base building. They didn't want that to be locked behind a whatever this vehicle is going to cost, $200 vehicle, $150 vehicle, and the $400, $500 ship you need to get that vehicle to the surface of the planet. That means your money buy-in to build a medium building has now just become $600, $700, which is crazy. So CIG then came out with the CSV FM series, which is a vehicle small enough to put in a Cuddy Black. So when you look at that, you go, okay, the CSV only costs $60 and a Cuddy's $100. That now brings medium bases down to be a level where you only about to have $150 real money investment into building them. The reason this also doesn't make sense is in comparison to the Starlancer build, right? Based off our estimates on what that is going to cost, what that ship is going to cost, This has a higher dollar footprint than the Starlancer build, but yet it's limited to building medium bases when
It,
the Starlancer build can build large. So this doesn't make
I
any sense anymore, right?
yeah. I think the way you need to look at it is like how you can do multiple things in different ways.
Yep.
And the way I kind of I'm trying to think of a way to analogize this. Like, you know how you've essentially got modular ships, variant ships, and niche ships, and basically niche is better than variants, but variants are better than modularity. It's a little bit like that. So having a vehicle like this that can do medium, yes, you are paying more for it, but it allows you to put it into a ship like a Hercules, which is more of a generalist. So I think, honestly, with the size, like you just said, the size of base building being one of the main things we're going to be doing, I think they're going to have an utter mammoth of variety of ways we can build things.
Yeah.
And I
that's
think
true. I agree with that.
it's the same thing with shop ships. It's something we realized with shop ships because of tech levels. Right? You can't have an Origin high-end restaurant, right, in a Drake ship. It just won't work, right? So they'll put it in an Origin ship. But by the same token, you're not going to have a taco truck in an Origin ship. And then you've got stuff in the middle as well. And you can already see the analogy a little bit there in what they've done. We've got a Drake privateer that has 12 shops, I think it is off the top of my head. And then you've got 10 in the Banu. But you've got a low-end Drake ship and a high-end Banu ship, right?
Sure.
So you can see that they're probably going to have, an 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 at least in that number of shops going down in ships, if not more.
And even on the end game side of that, even beyond that, I'm sure you'd agree, I'd fully expect there to be a freaking module you can buy for your space station that has NPC stores in it. I fully expect to see that.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see these tech levels even in the buildings.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't really have building manufacturers yet, but like, what's going to be the difference between, because think about how they talked about Origin, they talked about all the materials that go in, the fine wood and the pool and all that type of stuff. Or do you just build a square box room that's made like a Drake manufacturer or a Gray's Market, right? Is it just made out of recycled materials and it's basic functionality and it works? Or do you want to be able to see your reflection in the marble off the floor, right? There has to be a cost difference there, right? And so it's really going to come down to how you want to build it. And I think most people are probably going to build something in the middle, but then if they're, remember that room they talked about on top of the space station where the org leader could have his room up above the tower and stuff like that? That thing will probably be covered in marble, so he can show off his bling bling. By
the way, Prince, a sci-fi, thank you for those follows, appreciate it. Everyone, we're about, real quick, not to interrupt you, about 5-ish minutes from doing the SHIV and Sitcon goodies pack giveaway. Continue on, execute.
No, I think you're getting my point though, right? Like there's definitely tech levels in the game. You've seen it in the files. I've seen it in the files. It's just not something that they've come out and outly talked about.
And it's not to say that they're not going to do this one day. What I more am trying to say is that for the first appearance of base building in Star Citizen, especially on the testing servers, I think CIG just wanted to lower the barrier of entry so that testing can happen and be more widespread.
You're saying they want to make it accessible to all, and I 100% agree.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing: what would be interesting about this would be, like, if you did have a thing like this, is it would sort of give more reason to like rent a ship. Like if you own this base building ship that required a Herc, then you go rent the Herc to get it to where you need to go. Like that would make sense. So I do think we will see this in the future. I just didn't think for the initial onboarding of base building that was the plan. So it takes me back to this ground vehicle here. Again, this, whatever the hell this is, and I have an idea of what I think this is, I look at it as low-hanging fruit. Another ballista variant seems very easy, very straightforward to do. So I could see this being another one that hits this year. What do I think this would be? Oh, real quick, Red Monster SC just raided with a party of 62 viewers, sending the Kraken overhead. Red Monster, I hope you're well, dude. Salute. Thank you for trusting me with your community. It was awesome meeting you at Equinox.
I met him at CitizenCon last year. I can't believe it's already been a year.
Yeah, I met him. I met him in person at Equinox, and it was awesome. We met backstage. We got a picture with Sandy and Sean Tracy and all them, and me and Red Monster standing next to each other, and I am, of course, as always, not smiling in the photo, but I was very happy to be there.
Every time. Every time.
But thank you very much for that.
I'm gonna take a photo of
that
me
raid,
and
man.
you when we finally meet, where I'm like just got my fingers in your mouth, pulling you. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
gonna do.
Real
Make you
quick,
smile.
real quick, everyone that just came into chat, you came in at a great time. I'm doing a giveaway for a Gray's Market Shiv and a Sitcon goodies pack, all in one package, very conveniently, courtesy of CIG. Just go to this Gleam link that I just posted in the chat, and you can easily sign up for it. I'm going to give it away in a few minutes.
Someone was asking earlier, how did you enter?
Just go to that Gleam link. There's a couple ways to enter, like going to the YouTube, going to the Twitter, all that stuff. If you're all like follower on Twitter, if you're already a follower of STARJUMP Twitter, it'll register that. You don't have to refollow. It sees that you're a follower and gives you that ticket. So you don't have to pay for anything. It's easy to get in.
What's this option here that says give Grim your soul? What's that one about?
Look, I don't make the rules, okay? And also, thanks for the follows, everyone. Really appreciate it. Had some follows earlier, by the way. Again, just really appreciate that. Sci-Fi Guy, Ape on the Rock, and then all the new followers. Red, I hope you had a great stream, brother. Appreciate you sending your people over here. I will always, again, try to repay the favor. He says, lol, you running with Execute. Yeah, we're running together tonight. We're talking about possible ships for IAE, as we usually do. We talk a lot about spaceships here. So thank you again for that raid. Appreciate it. Going back to this ground vehicle, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think this is just a bigger version of the MTC. I think it's a mobile armory, which may be slightly disappointing to people, maybe very exciting to people. I don't know, but I think it's a mobile armory is what I think it is. Just a larger version or medical, possibly medical.
My hope is, because I've talked to a lot of military people when the Spartan and the Centurion and Ballista kind of first came out and they announced the Atlas platform.
Yeah.
And one of the very first things they brought up was a trailer variant. And they said in real life, there is a trailer variant and the trailer is modular. And they
cool.
showed me things. They showed me things like a J-Wiz on the back. For those that don't know, it's like essentially a massive minigun with a computer.
Yeah.
That shoots things out of the sky, so it can shoot down missiles, planes, whatever you want.
Maybe that's that new bespoke PDC, whatever.
Absolutely. Well, again, look at the tech. We know that they like to take tech and reuse it. You take all the turrets that they've shown for base defense and you put it on the back of this.
Yeah.
Every single one of those works. We've seen a turret at the CitizenCon that was on Bloom, where the 400i that was all metallic got shot by a turret. Think about all the turret work they've done this year, the PDCs they've done this year. You take any of that tech and roll it into a turret that you can put on the back of a vehicle. It is literally just, essentially, you've got to have power to run a turret on the ground. It's just that the power is inside the vehicle and it's attached to the vehicle.
Yeah.
So I could easily see a turret variant. I can also see, I was told about, there was a command and control variant that has a massive radar. These are real life ones, by the way, so you can look them up. I was told about a medical variant, and in the medical variant, the reason it's on the trailer is you need to be able to stand up to operate on someone. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's probably the most likely variant, because the only medical variant that we are missing is an armored vehicle.
Yeah,
right. If you look through the entire chain of military ships, medical ships, we've got the Ursa, but we don't have an armored vehicle. And by having that, you then literally have every single medical variant is known, right from the capital at the Endeavour all the way down to the Ursa at the bottom.
And I could even see it being playing in really nicely with, again, some of the mission sets they were showing us, and some of the stuff planned for 2026. It would make a lot of sense. So, all right, it is midnight, everyone, my time. So we're going to do the giveaway real quick. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and switch over to this. Now is your last chance, everybody. Only about 30 more seconds to get in on this. There's the link one more time.
What do you mean it's midnight? Sleep is for the week. Come on. All night. 24-hour stream. Let's go.
So real quick, by the way, I think this ship interested people. I usually run my giveaways that CIG provides for about 3 or 4 days. This is by far the most entries I've gotten.
Are you spicing it up at all? Like, did you do anything interesting with it? Like, are you going to throw in a skin or anything cool like that? Like, do you know how I've spiced mine up?
Yeah.
I literally converted it into a paladin. We're not giving a shit away. We're giving a paladin away. I
Let's
just
get
went
paladin.
because of the CCUs that were there,
Yeah.
I was able to up. So instead of 150, I was able to upgrade it for $90 to a paladin. Because I went from the Shiv to an Andromeda, from the Andromeda to the triage, from the triage to the Stinger, from the Stinger to the Paladin, and I saved $60.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. Execute is offering up paladins now for anyone.
I haven't announced it yet. Hey, hang on. Soon. Soon.
So, no, by far, though, the most entries in my CIG sponsored giveaways that weren't like a capital ship on the giveaway of Polaris and the Perseus in the past. Yeah. This one here has 1,057 entries after 3 days. Yeah, after 3 days. 1,057 entries and still a few entries coming in, everyone. By the way, you got about 15 more seconds. We're going to go ahead and do it. Hopefully you all got in there. This will be for a Grays Market Shiv and the CitizenCon goodies pack, which has all the armors, those new weapons. By the way, that new Space AK is pretty badass. The Vandal plushie. And then real quick, before we do this giveaway, I thought super interesting was just the piece of flare in there, the mining head. Tell me that does not look like the one that's on the Cygnus mining drone thing. It looks very similar, maybe just downscaled. I don't know. I don't know where that mining head is supposed to be though. Like, where's it from?
Yeah,
why did they include it?
Yeah, see, again, I keep going back to the orange large salvager, or or miners and stuff like that. So surface mining, underground mining, like there's all this type of things that I start to think about. Like there's something in there. You're right. I haven't.
It's got to
had
mean
enough time to sit and analyze it. It's got to mean something though. Now they don't just chuck that shit out for fun.
The only thing I thought was maybe it's supposed to tie in to or just be a reference for that new rock cracker event that they were talking about. But that was with lasers, so I don't know what this one is. Real quick, so I saw someone in chat say Grim will do a 24-hour live stream when the Kraken goes flight ready. Yeah, I will. I definitely will. Yeah, I'm just gonna fly my Kraken around the verse.
I'm gonna have to tag along for that one. Actually, Paul's got his 24-hour live stream coming up real soon.
Oh, does he?
And I always do the last slot. It's become like a ritual thing now.
Very cool.
Because he just becomes mush and I can play with him like Play-Doh. And I just have so much fun over that hour, like trolling him, and then he just goes off and goes to sleep. It's great. I love it. Because I end up running the stream because he just can't do anything. He's just
so
anyway,
real quick, I do not have a way to spice this one up. It's just what CIG gave, and that's what it is. So again, thank you, CIG, for providing it. I really do appreciate it.
How about this? I will, if the winner gets in contact with me very quickly, I will chuck in that Blossom skin.
Oh, look at that. That's pretty nice.
I'll do that.
Thank you, buddy.
So I'll give you an hour.
Okay.
Once it's gone, I'll give you an hour.
Here's what I will say though. If later this week I will be giving away again, I banked a lot of the patch bundles, which I know Execute loves. Later this week I will give away one of these, which I showed off earlier, which is the Elysium bundle, which has the gold and black or whatever hell color that is stuff for the Cuddy Black and the armor set and stuff. I do have one of those I'm gonna give away. I also have the new one with the Starlancer attack and stuff and the Palantino armor. So those are coming.
Yeah.
I kind of just bank those. They're easy giveaways. But here we go. Shiv and Sitcon goodies pack. Let me go ahead and refresh the page here. I'm about to draw a winner. So hopefully those of you that were interested got in. We now have 1,082 entries. 1,082 entries. Good luck, everyone. I'm not going to do it live on stream because Gleam does dox the person when you choose the winner, which is ridiculous. But I'm going to go ahead and pick the winner now, and then I will contact you via email, drawing the winner now. And the winner is, it's drawing, hands are off, it's drawing, and the winner is Heikel H. Let's see here, HYLKE _H. I do have your email here because email is how you have to enter these, or it's how you have to register. So that's why I use Gleam. Super easy to do that. So I will contact you via email.
Are they on stream?
If you're in stream,
chat,
are you in stream?
I will give you that. You can reach out to me via Discord if you're on stream, and I will give you a skin as well. If you're not here, tough cheat, you don't get shit.
He said,
that's how it works.
Ian Rain says he was in chat earlier. Okay. He was in chat earlier, so he missed out on the Blossom skin, it looks like, but I will contact you.
He's got an hour. He's got an hour to reach out to me on
Okay.
Discord. So
Okay. There
yeah.
you go. I will contact via email though. Congratulations on that again. Thank you, CIG. You know, CIG is nice enough to provide me stuff to give away now, which is awesome. So hopefully at IAE we'll have some interesting new stuff to come, which is really soon. By the way, we're only a month away from that. I do have a little bit of information on IAE though. It's going to be a little bit of bummer, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about it. It's me and my wife's 10-year anniversary around Thanksgiving this year. We are going away for about a week. I am 100% positive that is going to literally fall during the most important days of Citizen or IAE. I already know it. And so what I'm going to do, so I know coverage is going to be hard. I am bringing my laptop and mobile setup. I'll be able to do some shorter streams to cover news from IAE, and I'll probably be able to join via voice on like some execute stuff.
She does this every time, guys. She's always getting in between mine and Grimm's relationship. Like, hers is more important with him. I am just getting sick of it.
Thank you,
every
Vic.
time.
Can I just say too, CIG's two biggest events are literally when I do my most traveling. So Memorial Day weekend here in America is when people go on vacation. So Invictus is always rough.
Yeah.
And then IAE always goes through Thanksgiving, and that is when we travel to my wife's parents. It's when we do all of our family shit. It's frustrating.
When most people have money, it's when most people have money though. That's why they do it, because people have saved up for Christmas and stuff, and that's why they sell them at that time.
That's true.
It's that simple.
Real quick, everyone, I have everyone congrats on that. Yeah, I want to do one other thing here, as you all remember. One of our fellow StarJump Ender is going through a bit of a tough time right now. Lost his job, going through a divorce, selling a house, a bunch of other things that are just kind of going really rough in his life right now. He's in a tough place. As you all know, StarJump Ender started the StarJump St. Jude stuff years ago. I participated in it last year, had a great time doing it myself, and just playing that part. But he's done a lot of stuff for charity, and he's going through a tough time himself right now. So I want to put out a link real quick. He's got a GoFundMe going on to help him with his moving costs. He has to have a certain amount of money to move out of his house and get a new place, and he does not have a job yet to do that. So he's in a real bind. So I'm going to put that GoFundMe out. If you can, go to the GoFundMe, help support a really good dude who has done a lot for charity. If you can't financially do that, don't feel pressured. Don't put yourself in a bad position either. But if you do have the ability, feel free to go to that GoFundMe. Help the boy out. He's done a lot of good for a lot of people. He's done a lot of good for a lot of kids. He's been to the St. Jude campus several times now. And again, his just this past year, I think we hit 40 or 50,000 raised. So again, really cool stuff. So help Ender out if you can. Again, there is the GoFundMe link. I'll post that later this week. There is, don't forget, if you have ideas for Fleet Viewer and Hanger Link, you can go to our Discord and put in the Fleet Viewer suggestions or the Hanger Link suggestions. You can put your ideas. I will not be responding to them. I do that on purpose so that they're easier to go scrape through later. We are in discussions now for sort of like Fleet Viewer Hanger Link version 2, like what the next version is going to be. There are discussions. We're figuring out features. We want to redesign everything. In talks with Starlet.
Can I walk around in my ships?
That's
going to walk around in
my... But, with Starship 42 going under, we are kind of one of the main players now in the Fleet Viewer Hanger Link space, and especially the Fleet Viewer space, and we want to do some cool stuff. It's just finding the time to do it, and we have a lot of features we want to get in. We definitely want to redesign the entire experience. I know, especially on the Hanger Link side and also Fleet Viewer side. So go put your ideas in there. If I don't respond, don't worry. I am reading them. I have collected them. So that being said, execute. Where can people find you?
Just on Infrunners on YouTube or Twitch. And yeah, that's it. Real quick, Boris Kraken just said, X, are you going to the Atmo event in Sydney next year? Yes, I am. I paid for my flights and accommodation just yesterday. But yeah, that's Atmo. Chris and Sandy and Tyler are coming down to Sydney on the weekend of the. I'm going to be there from the 20th to the 22nd, and I believe it's on the 21st.
And what exactly is going on for that event?
If you type in Atmo Esports, it comes up. I'll tell you the name of it. Hang on, Atmo Esports. And it's called shit. What is it called? God damn it! All this crap, and I can't find what it's called. Calendar. Shit. It's got a name. It's like they're just doing an event. It's basically racing.
Right.
They always
And
do
Chris
racing.
and Sandy will be there. Tyler, I think, will be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm just trying to find the name of it. But could I? No. No, I can't find it.
That's all good. Real quick, because I do got to run, I'm going to go ahead and do a raid on Twitch. We're going to go to someone I've never raided before. I don't know his channel. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it doesn't put a bad mark on me in any way, but we're going to rate him. He's got a few people in there, about 30. So I'm going to send you all over there. Hopefully you'll give him some STARJUMP love. Really appreciate everyone coming out. Tonight we had incredible numbers, by the way. Oh my God, we had like 250 at one point on YouTube, which was amazing. And we got pretty high up on Twitch too. So that's really amazing. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the follows, all the subscriptions. If I didn't call your name, know that I do read through all the new follows. I really do appreciate it. The channel growth has been awesome. It's been great to talk to you all more and more about stuff lately, getting back to more of a regular schedule. I'll get some more stuff up on my YouTube calendar. For those of you that follow on YouTube and Twitch, do not forget, you can go to my upcoming streams, and I almost always have the streams for the week planned out. I need to get the ones up for this week, but I do have them usually planned out a week or 2 weeks in advance. So I'm going to get a little bit more diligent on that. Me and Art are talking about ways to get a little bit better organized on some of that stuff. So there is cool shit coming, but thank you all for hanging out with me. Execute. Have a great rest of your night, dude. We're going to be raiding.
Real quick, it was called Enter the Atmosphere.
Into the Atmosphere. Yes. Thank you.
Sorry.
We're going to be raiding Kamak. Go give him some STARJUMP love. I don't know him, but I'll hit follow over there. Appreciate everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. This was a lot of fun. Excited to see what the Perseus becomes. All right. Raid countdown is happening, everybody. Buckle your seatbelts. You're being sent over in 3, 2, 1. Have a good night.